Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order a committee of the whole meeting for Monday, August 23rd, 2021. First off, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, before we have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda, I just want to move item 10.A, that's a report BYL 21-08 on portable signs to ahead of 7.1A. If there's any other adjustments to the agenda, need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda.
I'd like to lift an item for clarification, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
I put a notice of motion in last meeting regarding the NRP and pay duties. I want to just lift that item to discuss it before we talk any further on it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, where did you want to take it to, move it to, Councillor Bain?
All I want to do is just refer it back to staff for a report. That's all I want to do. So wherever best is fine.
All right, it's already in 9.2A, so we can just deal with it there and refer it back to staff at that time.
Thank you.
All right, need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of August 23rd, 2021 be approved with item 10.1A moving to 7.1. All in favor? That's carried. Just before we get to adoption of the previous minutes, I just want to make an announcement. Last week, on behalf of council, myself, Councillor Cadwell, the CAO, and town staff virtually attended the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO conference, which was held August 15th to 18th. This annual conference brings Ontario's 444 municipalities together to discuss how we can achieve shared goals and meet common challenges. The conference hosted an array of workshops and keynote speakers, which fostered discussions about impacts of COVID-19 has had on Ontario's public health and long-term care system, the economic impacts of climate change, and broadband connectivity in Ontario. Premier Ford addressed attendees and various ministers forums took place throughout the conference. Forum topics encouraged municipal leaders to discuss how we can develop and implement an effective post-pandemic recovery plan for our residents and how we should leverage lessons learned during the pandemic to enhance and modernize service delivery. During the conference, myself and other town representatives met with several provincial ministers as well as opposition party leaders to discuss key priorities and advance ongoing Ginsbee initiatives. This included meetings with the Ministry of Infrastructure to discuss green infrastructural opportunities and express thanks for the $16 million in provincial funding received to support the Peach King Centre renovation and expansion. The Ministry of Health to discuss the province's ongoing support for the redevelopment of West Lincoln Memorial Hospital in partnership with Lincoln and West Lincoln and the region. The Ministry of Transportation to advocate the North-South Escarpment Crossing be included as a priority within the Greater Golden Horseshoe 2051 plan in partnership with Lincoln, West Lincoln, and Niagara region. Leaders of the provincial Green, Liberal, and NDP parties to discuss key regional priorities, including critical housing shortages, increased broadband and cellular connectivity, GO transit service expansion, and the Niagara Transportation Corridor. It was an honor and privilege to attend this year's AMO conference on behalf of the town of Ginsbee. I would like to thank many provincial representatives, including MPP Oosterhoff, who took the time to meet with us. I feel the town was able to further strengthen its intergovernmental relationships, which will continue to benefit Ginsbee as we work with neighboring municipalities and upper levels of government to advance large-scale infrastructural, transit, healthcare, and environmental projects that will bring long-lasting benefits to the residents of our community. Now we move to number 4, adoption of previous minutes. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that the Committee of Adjustment minutes of July 20th, Committee of Adjustment minutes of August 17th, Grimsby Museum Board minutes of August 4th, Planning and Development Public Meeting minutes of July 22nd, Grimsby DIA minutes of July 16th, and Active Grimsby Advisory minutes of August 18th be received. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to our first delegation. Francis and Russell Skripka and Peter Kondra, Ukrainian flag raising. Welcome, Fran and Russell and Peter. All right, they're just coming in now. Welcome, Peter, and welcome, Fran and Russell. Good evening. We're ready for your presentation now. Thank you.
Should we go ahead, Peter?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening. We would like to thank Mayor Jeff Jordan, Town Council, for allowing us to speak about why we would like to have the flag raising. This flag raising day tomorrow, August 24th, is to honor when Ukraine became independent from Russia 30 years ago. Between 1891 and to this day, Ukrainians emigrated to Canada, contributed to the growth of this country. Many, many people moved to Grimsby and settled here, became fruit farmers, excuse me, and opened the fruit markets, created many jobs. Now we have many Ukrainian Canadians who own vineyards in the Niagara region, including Rosewood, Leaning Post, Casaba, Enco, and Gretzky wineries. When Nick Anderchuk was mayor, who was my cousin, we were allowed to fly the flag twice to celebrate the independence of Ukraine. Now more than ever, because of the Russian occupation in eastern Ukraine, it is vital that Canadians, and in solidarity with Ukraine, flying the flag across Canada, will demonstrate to the world that we all stand in support of Ukraine's independence. Thank you for your attention to this important event. Thanking you again, Fran and Russell Skripka.
Thank you, Fran and Russell. Peter, some further comments?
Thank you. Mayor Jeff Jordan and Grimsby Town Councillors, thank you for this opportunity to address you on behalf of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress Niagara Branch as representative from the Ukrainian Orthodox Parish of St. George in Grimsby as their parish president. Tomorrow, Ukrainians around the world celebrate the 30th anniversary of Ukraine's independence. On August 24th, 1991, Ukraine's parliament, exercising the invite to self-determination, declared Ukraine an indivisible, democratic, independent state free from the USSR. The history of Ukraine is defined by the Ukrainians' fundamental belief in human rights, including the right to live in their own free land and to choose their common destiny as a nation. Their spirit of self-determination and unites all Ukrainians through the centuries of foreign occupation and subjugation, and their desire for freedom that has always endured. Currently, the freedom of Ukraine, of the Ukrainian people and Ukraine's statehood is defended by the courageous men and women of Ukraine's armed forces, who protect their country from Russia's war of aggression in eastern Ukraine and the subjugation of Crimea. Now, Crimean Tatars have also become targets of the Russian occupiers, who have killed and imprisoned hundreds for their support of democracy and just their ethnicity. As we celebrate the 30th anniversary of Ukraine's independence, we pay tribute to those whose bravery and valor safeguards that independence today. As Canadians, we are proud of the leading role that Canada has played as the first country to recognize Ukraine's sovereignty and independence in 1991. Since then, Canada has supported a democratic and prosperous Ukraine. We thank the personnel of the Canadian Armed Forces deployed to Ukraine in Operation Unifier, Canada's military training mission in Ukraine since 2014, for their service to Canada and to their commitment to the shared ideals of human rights for all. Many individuals of Ukrainian descent live in Grimsby and the region. Their ancestors arrived over 100 years ago. I am fourth generation born in Canada. Across Canada, from Yellowknife, Victoria, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Toronto, Hamilton, St. Catharines, even Niagara Falls will be turning blue and yellow, Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax. The Ukrainian flags are being raised in support, solidarity, and tribute. Supporting the cause of human rights and fundamental freedoms, Grimsby will be honored, or should be honored, to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Peter. Any questions from council? Councillor Cadwell.
I've done this for a couple of weeks and I feel like I'm starting again, Mayor. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the presentation and the awareness to the cause through the country of Ukraine and your flag. I just have a couple of questions. Maybe if Peter, if you can answer them, or Fran or Russ. You mentioned that the flag was flown a couple times in the past under the leadership of former Mayor Nick Anderchuk. What were those events? I'm just curious to know what those events might have been or what they were. Then I have another question too.
Peter or Fran? Peter, I think you're muted.
Okay.
There we go.
Fran and Russell were actually at those events. I wasn't, so I think they should speak.
All right, Fran, are you there? Can you tell us what those events were, the other two that former Mayor Anderchuk was at? Okay. Fran, you need to press *6 to unmute on the phone.
Button.
There we go. We hear
Okay.
you now.
Okay. Yes, at that time, it was also for the same reason to celebrate the independence of Ukraine. And that was quite a few years ago. And Nick was very good about it. Mayor Nick Anderchuk, and he allowed us to fly the flag at that time. For the same reason, Nick had relatives here that also came from Ukraine, and they were here, bought farmland, and as well as my great-grandparents and many other people at that time. So that was to celebrate the independence at that time.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
If I may, Mayor, I just have another question for Peter. You mentioned that Ottawa and a couple other larger cities are doing this, which I think is good and for the right reasons. Are there any other municipalities in the Niagara region, Peter, that you may be aware of? Are they looking to celebrate also your 30th year of independence?
Sorry, I don't follow the question.
Are there any other municipalities in the Niagara region that are planning to fly the flag tomorrow too?
Well, Niagara Falls and St. Catharines.
And I believe Lincoln
And
is as
Lincoln
well.
Township.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, So, yeah, deemed so.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter and Fran. Councillor Sharp?
Thanks, Mayor Jordan.
Thank
Just have a little comment. And so my great grandparents immigrated to Canada from the Ukraine in the 30s, and they moved to Grimsby in the 40s. So I am partially of Ukrainian descent, and so much of my family as well. So that would have been long before Ukraine was a free country, but we're happy that they came here. I'm happy that I live here, and thank you for bringing this to our council. That's all.
Thank you.
Councillor Vardy?
Thank you. I guess a couple questions. One, are we just accepting this delegation, or are we voting to act on this?
We have a resolution prepared to vote to act on it. So.
Okay. Well, at the risk of alienating Ukrainian Canadians and people of Ukrainian descent, and not to dismiss or diminish their struggle, I personally don't feel that it's appropriate for us to be wading into various international debates as a municipality. Because what comes to mind is, for instance, disputed territories like Kosovo, which, while has been recognized, it's still not accepted by Serbia. We have the state of Tibet, which is still disputed. China says it owns it. The problem with the Uyghurs in China, the problem with Taiwan, which we recently saw in the Olympics, which was referred to as, the disputed territory of China, or however they refer to it. We have current, civil wars in Afghanistan. We have divisions between Iraq and the Kurds. We have our own Canadian territorial disputes with various First Nations, Mexicans and the Texas border. So I guess I'm really reticent, and it's not because I don't want to acknowledge this. I just feel it's not our place to wade into this for the reasons that I've mentioned, because then we're going to be required to, wade into political debates that are way beyond our municipality, our authority, our municipal interest. So, thank you.
Councillor Bothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I thought there might have been, I hear Councillor Vardy, but yet I also hear the delegations, and I understand the passion and the support for the community, which was very instrumental to the development of Grimsby as well in the early years. Do we have a flag raising policy? I thought some other municipalities also had that same question come up when something like this, these requests were made. Can the clerk please just verify what our flag raising policy is? That would really help.
Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we do have a flag raising policy, and there are clauses in there that stipulates what flags cannot be raised. From the top of my head right now, it would be any flags with hate, with political in nature. So, I mean, I think it would be up to council to decide whether this is political in nature.
Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and I really enjoyed the presentation, and I've given this a lot of thought about this a lot. There are other cultural flags, I'll use that word, that we do fly. there's flags that are now flying at half mast that are obviously cultural. I'll just use that word right now. So yeah, those are my just comments. What we're doing presently and what we've done in the past a little bit too. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for one of both ends. Thank you.
Peter?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I would just like to comment that this really is a fundamental universal human rights freedoms for all people. It's not really political, and Ukraine and Canada are signatories to the International Declaration on Human Rights, and so I don't view this as a political statement at all.
Thank you. And seeing no further comments from council, I just want to offer my own comment. And I realize we do have a policy. And when I was asked, this is why I brought this to council and wanted the parties to come in as a delegation, because I think in this case, with Canada being the first country to recognize Ukraine's independence in 1991, and with the number of cities and towns across Canada that are flying a flag and honoring the Independence Day on August 24th, I wanted to bring it to all of council and to let council decide if we felt like we would override our policy on this instance. And I feel with our strong Ukrainian heritage in the town of Ginsbee and in the Niagara region, I feel that this is a case where we can raise the flag for the right reasons, and I think take the negative and bad politics out of it in this case. And I would like to decide any things that are like this on a case-by-case basis when they come along, and bring it to council and let the public be able to hear about it. So if there's no further comments, we have a resolution here. We just need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Sharp. And a seconder, Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the delegation from Francis and Russell Skripka and Peter Kondra be received, and that council endorse the Ukrainian flag raising for August 24th, 2021. Maybe I will do a recorded vote. I think that might be easiest.
Councillor Bothwell?
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Councillor Sharp?
Yes.
Councillor Vane?
Yes.
Councillor Vardy?
No, sorry.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, thank you, Peter and Fran and Russell, for your delegation. It was nice to hear from the three of you. Have a good evening.
You're very kind.
Our next delegation is Liz Bennett, Ginsbee Indoor Pool Initiative. Welcome, Liz. We're just waiting for Liz to connect.
It's not, okay, there we go.
All right, we hear you now.
Okay, we're in. Okay, perfect.
All right, welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Okay.
We're ready for you now.
So just get started.
Yep, absolutely.
I am going to share my screen if that's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
Screen sharing's fine.
Okay, so I'm just going to put this up here. Hopefully. Let's see here. Your screen is blocking my screen. Let me see here. Okay, did somebody say something? Okay, here we go. Let's try this. Yeah, it won't go over your screen. Let me see if I can reduce it. There you go. Now can you see it? No, it's not working.
Sorry, Liz, you had two accounts that joined, so we're giving you permission on the other one. It should work now.
Okay, is it working now? Can you see my screen?
No, but can you try again?
Okay, I will try again. Okay, so share screen, and I'm gonna put you to the back and bring this to the front. Yeah, you still can't see that. I'm just gonna have to go ahead, I think, right? Let me try one more thing. Yeah, so it's not, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's not sharing, so.
That's too bad. Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to go ahead then, okay? So
Sure.
I'm gonna start with my timer so I don't go over. And I'm just gonna minimize this so I can see you guys. Okay, so my name's Liz Bennett and I'm the lead of the Ginsbee Indoor Pool Initiative, and I'm here to ensure political commitment to affordable public indoor aquatics. It's the #1 priority in the master plan, but is not part of the recent $16 million grant to improve the Peach King Center. And there are many benefits of aquatics. It saves lives and improves health for everyone. It's a life skill. We live by a lake. Water skills can mean the difference between life or death. It's the most inclusive recreational activity servicing everyone from 0 to 100 plus with varying mobility, those with cognitive, intellectual, and physical disabilities, as well as conditioning novices to world-class competitors in a variety of sports, including swimming. Indoor aquatics offer year-round low-impact, full-body fitness, relaxing relief from stress and physical pain while improving physical fitness and mental wellness, as well as conditioning. Sorry, I'm just a little distracted by noises there. Therapeutic aquatics is often recommended by the medical community and is usually the sole recommended exercise before and after joint surgery. Aquatics is a fun way to socialize with others. It improves long and short-term memory and decreased dementia, as well as being a clear cognitive benefit across all ages compared with land sports. Seniors have lower injury rates, develop strong and stable core muscles necessary for good balance and control, protecting them against falls. Fewer injuries combined with all the other increased fitness benefits means fewer burdens on our healthcare system. And it supports Grimsby's motion for inclusivity and diversity. So historically, there's been a lack of political commitment towards aquatic growth. There was a study completed over 20 years ago, which indicated there was a need for an indoor pool, and the population of Grimsby has more than doubled since then. Grimsby has been funding a variety of recreational resources without a public referendum, unlike aquatics, which went to referendum in a Grimsby election. And all things considered, about 15% of Grimsby's population sacrifice the long-term benefits of indoor aquatics in favor of presumably lower taxes in an uninformed vote. So that referendum can't be used as a ballot statistic to reflect the needs of the community then, now, or in the future. It also diverted $2.2 million to the West Niagara YMCA, I'm told, with little return. And most of all, it gave a private organization control of West Niagara Aquatics. So the master plan completed in 2019 used substantial relevant research and assembled input from over 1,000 residents by skilled, non-biased professionals working in municipal planning and building. That report serves the actual planning needs and long-term interests, of our community. Okay, and it means more, significantly more effective than a random referendum. Council needs to be accountable to that comprehensive investment in the master plan. Although grant timelines and requirements are sensitive, it still doesn't excuse attention to the #1 recreational need. West Niagara has had to use aquatic facilities in other communities as far as Burlington or London, Ontario for lifeguards to get their accreditation and training, for example. St. Catharines Kiwanis Pools gives preference to residents for lessons and swims. and they're so busy local residents are being turned away. Grimsby residents are waitlisted there for swims, and Hamilton is similar and charges a modest non-resident fee. Aquatic users either drive or don't swim because there are no facilities that are close by or are unaffordable. Being divided, they have a diluted, unestablished voice in the community to advocate for affordable year-round aquatics. The longer aquatics is put off, the fewer sites are available and taken up with more land sports, residential, or commercial development. The master plan and government direction encourages multi-use recreational facilities or MRFs and partnerships. Adding aquatics to the Peach King Center would support this directive. There's an idea for the Casablanca in development to offer a public pool, but lack of municipal control limits fair access and pricing. Condos and hotels offer smaller pools with no lifeguards for limited leisure activities. So we're not replacing the need for a municipal pool. Although Grimsby Secondary School land is publicly owned, it's likely the town will have to pay fair market value for that. So the sites require further study. As far as the Y is concerned, most household budgets don't allow for Y costs. The Y pool is a luxury leisure pool for the few. There are no separate pool fees. A 1 month membership at the Y is close to an entire year of pool fees at public facilities in Hamilton. Subsidies are limited and many don't qualify or apply, so are a further barrier to access. Even though millions of dollars were given to the Y in building fees from the town of Grimsby, residents are still charged a one-time building maintenance fee. The Y turns away coaching or competitive use for swim teams and Special Olympic training. YMCAs in Niagara are shutting down. If the municipalities of Grimsby, Lincoln, and West Lincoln building the new secondary school beside the Y collectively owned it, they would also have control of that facility. And control gives you the flexibility to open when needed, provide affordable fees, diverse programming, and schedules to suit the needs of those three municipalities. Aquatics is a great investment in our community. It is costly. Cost to improve the Peach King Center that serve a limited exclusive population is higher. It's unclear how the multi-purpose rooms will be used for seniors and other populations. The local outdoor Lions pool charges premium rates almost double than rates in all nearby communities. Intellectually disabled people are not eligible for swimming lessons there. It would get more use if rates were comparably priced and had greater access. Hamilton also offers free swims during heat waves. St. Catharines estimates that after all incoming fees, the annual operating budget for the Kiwanis Aquatic Center is about $400,000. It's such a desirable and well-used asset that municipal government has never received complaints about its costs. They're looking to build a second aquatics facility. Year-round aquatics attract people to visit or live here, bringing more funds into the area. St. Catharines and Orillia are two examples of that, and I'm told that when prospective doctors tour an area to set up a practice, they move on when they find there isn't a recreation center with aquatics available that they and their patients can use. Indoor aquatics provide year-round employment. We have a growing tax base and funds from new building developments to support this initiative. And could we access funds not being used during the lockdowns from closing most available recreation, as well as the 5% cash taken in lieu of parks and new developments to specifically support aquatics? Funds to debenture or finance an aquatics facility has never been lower. Communities significantly smaller than West Niagara all over Canada have beautiful aquatic centers as a way to service the growing communities and tourism. If they can do it, so can we. Council needs to step up with the needed integrity and vision to responsibly administer Grimsby's #1 recreational priority, affordable public indoor aquatics. Town rec staff needs a political commitment to proceed. Only then can we access multi-level government funding and private resources. Now is the time to initiate affordable public indoor aquatics with comparable facilities and rates to other communities while we have the space, historically low interest rates, and a supportive provincial government. It's been a much overlooked need for many, many years. Together, we can make public indoor aquatics work. Teamwork makes the dream work, as was proven with the hospital. Taxes go up each year. It's part of the town's budget. Aquatics is responsible community investment. It supports diversity, accommodates all physical, cognitive abilities, genders, cultures, underserviced age groups, and special populations. It also provides low-impact fitness, therapeutic relief, and a space for competitive aquatic sports. If you think of aquatics as expensive, think about the costs of water accidents, exclusivity, and discrimination. Repair the errors of the past, build a future Grimsby to just keep swimming towards financially accessible, inclusive, and sustainable public indoor aquatics. It's time to expand our lake community into uncharted waters, beyond hockey rinks and basketball gyms. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation, Liz. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Vane.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having been on the former Parks and Recs committee as the chair, I had the opportunity many times, and we did discuss this many times, with the director of Parks and Recs, Sarah Sweeney. And I can assure you that a swimming pool is something I would love to see, but the cost and the space required, we currently don't have that as the town. The cost would be very prohibitive. And also there was concerns, I'm trying to remember all the conversations we had about it because we had a fair amount. There were concerns of causing hardship to the other two pools in the area, things like that. But it's just mainly it comes down to cost. And I know that you've talked about a number of taxes and builders fees and all that. A lot of those things that you're talking about are one-time fees. The ongoing operational costs were a big concern. We have other demands as well. For example, when we do the Peach King Center, there's a huge push right now to save racquetball courts, which we're looking at taking out. There's another push to bring out another ice rink. There's a lot of demand here, and I fully support the idea of another pool. But based on my conversations, unless we can get staff to buy in, which I don't think we will, I can't support it at this time as much as I would love one. Trust me, I really, and a lot of the points you made are very valid. I'm just, like I say, based on my past experience, I don't think we're in a position to build another pool. But that's just my opinion. And I would like to hear, I think Sarah's out of town right now. But yeah, that's the experience I've had when I did discuss the pool, because that was one of the first things I brought up. So just a little information for you there.
Oh, well, I understand that. I think the government is talking about private partnerships as well. I don't know if you can hear me. Because I think we're delayed a little bit on this for some reason, but I think there's a lot of ways to get around that. And like I said, St. Catharines has never ever had a problem with complaints from residents. And like we're already squeezed out of space. We did talk about that, and I just think that the longer we put this off, it's never going to happen. And our population is growing so rapidly that we're in need of more and more recreational facilities.
As there's a notice of motion concerning the pool tonight on our agenda, we're going to save the debate and discussion to the September 7th meeting. So if comments are fine, but we just won't have back and forth with the delegation. So Councillor Cadwell, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thank you for your presentation, Liz. I'm just going to go back a little bit. I know you mentioned about the referendum. I know that was before 2006. You mentioned maybe 20 years ago. Could be right on that, but it was quite a while ago, exactly, Liz. And I thought that was a good way. Again, not being on council at the time, but for a facility of that magnitude, the cost, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, because I think it would provide a very good service to the community. But I think I liked how the council of the day did it back then. Put it on a referendum, put it on the ballot. Let the residents of Grimsby speak. Anyways, that got turned down. Also, after that, a few years later, when the former owners of the Total Fitness gym, when they built their gym in Good Life, I remember they came to the town looking for partnerships. They were going to actually build a pool with part of the gym at Good Life before they sold it to Good Life. Anyways, so there's a little history there with former owners Joel and Chris Turner. The town also gave approximately $2.5 million of taxpayers' dollars to the YMCA. And we have I'm not a member of the Y, but we have a very good pool in our community now. So to your points, I'm not going to debate that with you, but just so that was brought forward. You mentioned local pools, also Brewster, I believe it's called, which is I guess it's the old Orchard Park High School list. That's only down the road a little ways too. If that pool is still in existence, I don't know. The city of St. Catharines, they closed their pool at West Park Secondary School a number of years ago. And I have been in the Kiwanis Center. It is a beautiful center. I agree, Liz, it's great. That'd be something nice to have too someday. But I think right now, I don't know how we can afford to do it as a town with everything that we've got on the go right now. So just my last point, and I'll be quick, Mayor. You mentioned in a paragraph about our rates that we charge are almost double. I reached out to staff today, and I'm not going to read it all, but I do have the numbers of what we pay in that. And I guess I'll leave that till September, on the meeting in September, Mayor, because I think that's a debatable item there, and I'd like to hear from staff on that too. So I've got the numbers. They don't look too bad to me. Anyways, thank you for your presentation, Liz.
Councillor Bothwell.
Did you want me to respond to those points or?
No, we're not going to do response
Okay,
tonight.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just want to again thank the presenter for her presentation. Very well done. And I know she's very passionate about aquatics in Grimsby, and I think it's great. And working with the community to try to see what interest is out there. I'm looking forward to the motion that Councillor Frake has brought forward at the next meeting, and the intent to delve into it further. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I look forward to that discussion at the next meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Yeah, so I guess I have a few questions. One, and maybe Sarah can answer them. How much does a pool cost? That's one thing I'd like to know. The other thing is, if we've given money to the Y, why can't we build a partnership with the Y? I mean, we've already helped to support the building of that pool. Is there not some way that we could have a partnership with them that would allow Grimsby residents? And maybe we do something the same way we sort of support transit. Maybe there's a way that we can support, swimming to some degree or help offset the cost. So given that we've already put money into that pool. So maybe if I could get an answer to those two questions, I'd appreciate it.
Well, as far as the partnerships, I think that would be up to you, but the one counselor in St. Catharines said that for a 6-lane pool with a shallower area for teaching would be about 20 million, roughly.
Great. And as far as the costing of the pool, that'll be something that Sarah will be able to have those numbers for September 7th for you, Councillor Vardy. Seeing no further questions or comments, I just need a mover and seconder to receive Liz's delegation. And thank you very much, Liz, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Moved by Councillor Sharp. Seconder, Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that delegation from Liz Bennett be received. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, Liz. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Up next, our third delegation is Father Rico Pissarro, St. Joseph's Church. Welcome, Father Rico. All right, welcome, Father Rico. I think you're muted right now, but there you go. All right, good evening, Father Rico.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councilors. Thank you for receiving my delegation. I hope that you were able to see the 2-page report that I had submitted as far as my presentation, so I'm not going to go over it a second time. But basically, St. Joseph's Church has been part of the Grimsby community for over 150 years. This is now our third location. In building the current parish in 1995, the parish was built, specifically the rectory, which houses the local clergy, owned by the parish, not by the clergy themselves. There was an understanding that if the rectory was built attached to the church and under the current roof, it would be free from tax. And so decisions were made at that time to build a very small rectory, which is the one that I currently have the pleasure of living in. Up until 2016, we had been paying that tax rate. And in 2017, MPAC did a reassessment on our property and has ballooned our taxes to a very, very inordinate number. And so since 2017, I have been in dialogues with your predecessor, Mayor Jordan, and going back and forth between town staff and MPAC, and back and forth, the other group places it on the other. And finally, I'm here asking the support of you, Mayor Jordan, who I spoke to as an individual, as well as some of you councilors as individuals, and now collectively just to have the parish taxation revert back to what was agreed upon many years ago. You may notice that when MPAC made an further assessment back in 2001, there was a delegation made by our parish, and it was reversed then as well. And since that time, the parish has paid taxes up till date, up until this current assessment to which I am challenging. Of course, this is not a business or an individual. We are the church. We are God's arm in the community. And so pulling these funds would have a drastic effect on our budgeting here at the parish. And this is something that is very disturbing to us. And so for our 3,100 families that use St. Joseph's to worship God, it's a very big deal. But also that we offer many, many other opportunities for non-Catholics to also attend St. Joseph's for condo board meetings, polling stations, girl guides, all of which we don't charge monies for, access to our property. There have been no further building outside of the current rectory and all that was built in 1995. So again, the question is why all of a sudden our taxes would all of a sudden balloon to the rate that is currently being assessed in our parish since 2017. So I know in talking with town staff, it was mentioned that other churches are taxed at a 50% rate, but St. Joseph's is the only church in the town in which the rectory is attached to the parish church itself, and it is not owned by the clergy and cannot be resold in any category. So we are in a category of our own. I know in speaking with one of the counselors, they also mentioned that the decision that council made recently in regards to the former St. Mary's property and the cadets would have an effect on the decision here, to which I would respectfully disagree, because this has been an ongoing issue since 2017. So I don't believe that that decision should have an effect on the decision here. Once again, I feel very strongly that precedence has been set, and St. Joseph's continues to be a very important part of building the community of God and also supporting the residents of Grimsby. So I respectfully ask for your support, Mayor Jordan, and that of you councillors in moving a motion forward to be able to reverse the tax assessments that have been brought forward to St. Joseph's since 2017. Of course, reversing the interests and charges attached to that, so that way we can be assessed at the former levels as agreed upon. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Father Rico. So for direction for council, if we want to put any type of motion forward, what we need to do is in our consent agenda, lift item 6.1A, FIN 2124, and then we'll discuss we'll discuss that at that point. So questions or comments would be directed to Father Rico right now about his delegation. So Councillor Vane.
You cut off before you said the councillor's name.
Sorry, Councillor Vane.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I've been speaking with Father Rico for several months on this, and I did put a notice of motion in, but in speaking with the treasurer, it was suggested that I hold off on the notice of motion until tonight. Now you tell me that there is a possibility to discuss it tonight. I think the main point that we have to look at, and I know there is total agreement in this across town staff and council, but as Father Rico pointed out, and I'm not a big fan of charging any religious institution any taxes, but I understand the part about the homes, in that some religions offer homes to their pastors and other church leaders, but the homes are usually off-site, or not off-site, they're not attached to the church itself. As Father Rico's clearly stated, this has been created within the church. It's a small area. It's not something that can be resold at another time. It's part of the church. And any money that we take from any church, in my eyes, and specifically in this case that we're discussing, is money that's taken away from the community. It may not seem as that large amount of money to us, but a few $1,000s can subsidize a whole, or can run a whole program. As Father Rico stated, the church is open to the whole community, not just the Catholic community. I know during parades and other functions and stuff like that, the people are using the parking lot. One day, Father Rico is going to have to repave that parking lot. It won't be coming to the town for money. It'll be coming out of the church profits, or the church, not profits, sorry, the church funds. So I think for the small amount that we're collecting in taxes, I will be supporting a motion to suspend them. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just have a couple of questions for Father Rico, please. So when MPAC came in 2017 and reassessed the clergy residents, what did they say? Because from what I understand with their property codes, they have special codes for places of worship with clergy residences, a place that's code 700. 701 is a place of worship without clergy residents. And then there's a separate classification under residential. It's code 314 for clergy residents, which I'm assuming is a separate residential assessment for clergy residences that are separated from the building or offsite or whatever. So did they explain to you why they reassessed you in 2017 and what determination they used, and have you appealed it to them?
Thank you. So I spoke to two managers, Jeff and John from MPAC, and both had made a determination that they were just told to reassess the property, as they were doing for all properties in Grimsby at the time. And when the former mayor had suggested to me, well, perhaps Father Rico, you could appeal it. When I spoke to MPAC, they said, regardless of what our assessment of the property is, your own municipality can tax according to their own wishes. So it began this back and forth, Councillor Bothwell. So they did not disclose these particular sections that you talk about, 314 and 700. Basically, the impression they left me with is they're washing their hands of it, and they said, go back to your own mayor and your own municipality for them to reassess and vote. And so here we are.
Okay, I just wondered if the first route might be to appeal to them to find out, because you're unique, as you said, in Grimsby for sure, where the clergy residence is built into the actual place of worship. It's all part of the same building on the same lot. It's not even a separate building, and the places of worship are exempt. And I noticed, I think, because you on the tax bills, there's a separation between the value of the place of worship, and then there's a residence line separate. So I'm just, I'm sure this discussion will come in with our treasurer later, but, and we'll have to go into more detail at that point. If council reviews your situation, would you be, and if we decided to do a forgiveness, not retroactively, would that also be an option for you? But moving forward.
The challenge I have with that, counselor, is it continues this back and forth. It seems that if we went down that road, it's putting us back to the situation from before, that nobody actually wants to address this. And because of the precedence that was set back in 2001, the last time MPAC did this, when we brought it to the town, it was reversed, the monies were refunded, and the next 15 years continued as such. So my position here, which I think is well-founded, is that this would be the same case again, where town could make a motion, it can be reversed, and we would be assessed, which is basically just the small shed that's out back that, personally, I wouldn't have built myself, but I wasn't part of the building committee back in 1995. So I feel very strong. I don't mean to cut you off there, Councilor.
No, go ahead, keep going.
I feel very strongly, dear Mayor and councillors, is that we would address it here. MPAC continues to send me back to you, and I'm asking that this be addressed so it doesn't continue and linger.
Sorry, one more quick question. The amount that they assessed you on, it was like, the value was like 28,000 or 34,000. Was that for the garage or the shed, or was that actually for the residence?
My understanding is it's for the garage and the shed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or comments, Councillor Cadwell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thank you for your presentation, Father Rico. I guess the question I have is, you mentioned that the house was built, the church, the whole facility was built, was in 1995?
Yes, sir.
And your house is attached to the church, which I've seen many times. And you haven't done any renovations or any major upgrades that would, facilitate impact, maybe, because it is quite an increase from 2016 to in a year.
Exactly.
Yeah. So would that have been a market value assessment, do you think, Father? But I'm just trying to understand this, because that's such a large increase in assessment. So, and with it being attached to the church, that, as discussed earlier, I mean, a lot of churches do have residents for their leaders, but they're separate. I'm thinking of Trinity. I'm thinking of the Anglican Church on Main West there. So, yeah. So market value, Father, do you think?
It's a fair question, Dave. I believe that has been the case because we haven't done any upgrades at all. And in calling my brothers and sisters in the clergy, again, we're the only church that houses at St. Andrew's is on the same property, yes, but they are separate. So again, that I don't suggest that would ever be sold, but could it be? The answer is yes. It's just not going to be, right? And I'm not here to get other parishes in trouble at all. Again, we all work for the Lord. But I think your question is very fair, Dave, and that's where it left us to say, like, nothing has changed. Why has this ballooned into a level that would cut our programming, which is drastic for us?
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Vane.
I just wanted to add to something for Councillor Cadwell's benefit. I believe it was late last year, Father Enrico and I had already discussed this at that point, and I approached the MPAC representative who happened to be on site at Town Hall one day, and I believe Councillor Cadwell was correct. I believe it was done as a market value assessment at the time. I don't recall the conversation that well, but I know that I believe it was somewhere in that area. But again, they said their recommendation, going back to Councillor Bothwell's comment about appealing, was again that it would be better to go to council as opposed to appealing to MPAC itself. So that's just a little background. I just want to offer on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, thank you very much for your presentation, Father Rico. We need a mover and seconder to receive the delegation. Moved by Councillor Bain and second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the delegation from Father Rico Pissarro be received. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Father Rico. You have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, moving to our consent agenda. Councillor Bothwell.
So, thank you, Mayor. I'll lift the 6.1A as well as 6.4A. And I just wanted to note that under consent agenda number 6, it says the following items listed with an asterisk. None of them are noted with an asterisk, but I'm assuming that they all are consent, even though they have no asterisk. So, thank you.
Yes, I believe they are. So, all right. So those two are lifted. We have the other three. Need a mover and seconder for the consent. Moved by Councillor Sharp. Seconder, Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby approves the following items and that the various consent items be approved and the recommendation is contained therein. Report ITS I 21-02 Information Technology and Service Innovation Information Report. Report DRS 21-22 Community Program Grant Recipients 2021. A report DRS 21-23 Parks, Recreation and Culture Information Update. All in favor on the consent agenda? All right, and that is carried. With those lifted, where do we move now? All right, so now we're moving to item 6.1A, FIN 21-24, property taxes 135. Melanie, I think you were going to speak on that. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. So we prepared this report when we received the request for Father Rico's delegation to try to provide Council with some information and some facts as we understand them. So the current staff has investigated the tax situation and can talk with MPAC, and we've included some of those facts in this report, as well as attempted to provide Council with some clarity on should they choose to provide staff with direction, what they would need to do under the Council authorities section of the report. So I know there's some technicalities here and probably lots of questions, so it's probably best for me to leave it at that and just answer your questions as best I can.
Great, thank you, Melanie. Questions from Council? Councillor Bothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I appreciate the work Melanie put into this report on such short notice, and I was back and forth with you a bit. I'd like to refer the report back to staff, do a motion to refer the report back to staff to come back with the costing for the retroactive tax should Council choose to look at a retroactive tax rebate for taxes 2017 forward, and ask staff to come with that costing information at their earliest convenience.
All right, the clerk is just putting together a referral motion now.
And Melanie, if you could maybe even confirm with MPAC what they've been assessed at, which property codes, that would help too.
All right, we just need a seconder for the referral motion. Councillor Bain. And any discussion on the merits of the referral? Councillor Cadwell, did you want to discuss the merits of the referral? No. Councillor Vardy? No. All right. So moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that report FIN 21-24 be referred back to staff to include retroactive costs. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's carried.
Now we're moving to item 10.1A, BYL 2108, the portable signs. Councillor Cadwell?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. I know we've just passed the motion, but I had a question for Melanie, but you know what? I can wait, or I can send her an email. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're moving to the portable signs. Henry?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So I prepared a little slideshow about my report about portable signs on residential and rural properties within the town of Grimsby. So it's labeled report BYL 21-08. Next slide, please. So the town of Grimsby sign bylaw number 97-45 as amended. So is a bylaw that's regulating advertising devices in the erection of signs and other advertising devices. Sorry about that. This bylaw does not enforce the actual message on the sign. I just wanted to reiterate that. So currently the sign bylaw number 97-4 as amended does not permit portable signs on residential and rural properties. Next slide, please. So the first point that we're bringing up today is the safety and litter aspect of this. So sign pollution adding to the distraction of motorists is a key safety factor here for any visitors and residents of the property, and that should ultimately be our key here, is the safety aspect. And so just another side portion of this is the litter factor. So the potential litter and discarded and unmaintained signs for this would take town staff to remedy that situation under the enforcement or other town staff to clean up any potential litter that is left behind by these signs. Next slide, please. So we did look into an amendment for potential private advocacy signs, taking a look at the municipality of Port Hope's sign bylaw definition. So we looked at this definition here, which means a temporary sign erected for the purpose of expressing a thought, belief, or opinion in accordance with Section 2B of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So freedom of expression under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is subject to reasonable limits under Section 1. So we believe that the current restriction of portable signs appears to be reasonable and justifiable limits. So with looking at this, we did review this with our legal counsel, John Maskern, who did agree with this as well, just for the current restriction being a reasonable and a justifiable limit. Next slide, please. So just looking at a financial impact, if we did put date restrictions within this amendment on portable signs within residential and rural properties. So just from the cost of administration and enforcement may not be fully recoverable here. So for example, if we do have someone that goes past an allowable date, if we were to put a time constraint on this, would take enforcement time and administration measures to follow through with that. And kind of from a potential permit side would be the same thing. Next slide, please. So currently, it is recommended from a report that the town of Grimsby make no changes to the sign bylaw 97-45, and we continue enforcement of portable signs on residential and rural properties. So the benefits of this would include a safer commute for motorists and pedestrians, and So just to reiterate again, that the sign bylaw number 97-45 does not actually manage the message on the sign. So we're actually just managing the placement and erection of signs on individual properties themselves. That was all I had. Thank you for allowing me to present this to you today. I will be open for questions now, and I believe John Maskern, our legal counsel, is also here for questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Henry. Councillor Vane.
Actually, I just wanted to make two comments in regards to what Henry just said. In regards to the safety issue, when I was doing looking at Nels and Main, I believe that's the intersection where we have a notice of motion coming up tonight. One of the things I did notice about a lot of these intersections where we're having issues was the fact that there were a lot of signs, you know, whether irregardless of the message, a lot of the messages were good, but there were a lot of signs that did block the driver's view or distract my view as I was driving. The second point I want to raise is this happened to me many years ago where it was one of those plastic bag types had blown off or blown away. It ended up underneath my car and melted onto my car engine, or the undercarriage, sorry, not the engine, the undercarriage of the car. Fortunately, my dealer was able to get it off, but there is a litter concern there as well, which I have personally experienced. But my biggest concern is the safety factor. If we start allowing people to put up signs, I mean, they can go. I understand freedom of expression. I have no problem with that at all. I don't care, you know, what if people want to say what they want to say, but within reason. It can turn into a real nightmare. Not only the distraction part, but it just, you know, you could have neighbors warring with each other or whatever. I just think, as they both said, and apparently as John Mascaron is going to say, according to Henry, I agree that what we have is sufficient. It's worked well for many years. I think this whole issue was brought up because of one sign that some people felt was contentious, or a couple of signs that were contentious. I just think we need to look beyond that and look at the safety and the litter as Henry has raised. And thank you for the report, Henry, by the way.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thanks again, Henry, for your report. With regards to the bylaw 97-45, does that also include signs that are on hydro poles? Sometimes you'll see, you know, the temporary garage sale signs on hydro poles, again, or even, you know, the old bell wooden telephone poles, any poles, Henry. So is it the bylaw reference that too?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cadwell, those are considered third-party signs that would not be allowable to be erected on telephone poles. It is an ongoing battle with those. We do proactively enforce those and have them removed every time we get a chance to. So those are considered third-party advertising signs.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Henry, because I can see, and I've had a bit of a conversation with the folks at GPI that they can be a real nuisance, especially, I mean, you know, they don't climb poles like they used to in the old days, but still, it's just something that can be in the way too. Okay, thanks for that information, Henry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'm just a little confused, and maybe John Maskern can help clarify Henry's last statement that postering on poles is third-party advertising, and I think maybe you can help me clarify the Ramsden versus Peterborough decision, Supreme Court decision on that, because in it, I believe the judge in Supreme Court ruled that prohibiting postering would end litter and aesthetic blight. However, the means did not minimally impact the right of freedom of expression. Specifically, that bylaw went too far by prohibiting all postering on all public property. Worker safety was only important with respect to power poles, not to trees, other types of property, etc. And actually, Mr. Maskern contributed to an article called "Is the Writing on the Wall for Sign Bylaws in Canada?" And it actually referred to that, took into account a number of recent Supreme Court decisions on Charter of Rights and the Ramsden versus Peterborough decision. And in it, he states, in the interim, it's clear the Supreme Court of Canada places a high value on postering and signage as a form of freedom of expression, and that it will continue to carefully scrutinize municipal attempts to curtail them in the name of aesthetic improvement. Such bylaws will have to be carefully crafted with a constant view to the goal of eliminating visual blight in the least intrusive manner. And it would appear to be inadvisable to distinguish between different types of expression in the bylaw, even if the distinction is designed to be more permissive, since this may cloud the rationale. In pursuing the elusive goal of minimal impairment, one may fully wonder whether there's any permissible way to curtail that type of expression. That's in the Guignard case. But I think what comes out of this is that protecting the charter rights of our residents is really, really important. And the fact that the current bylaw for portable signs states that no person shall erect, locate, or install a portable sign on land zone, residential or rural, clearly prevents that charter right of freedom of expression on their residential private property. So I would just reach out to Mr. Maskeren to clarify why, what would be the cost of a charter challenge for someone who put a sign on their residential property as a statement of expression, freedom of expression. And if they went to challenge that in the courts, what would the town be facing as a charter charge cost is my first question. Because then it also opens a door to, if they're treating that as a portable sign, are the slow down signs by CAA, or the hate doesn't live here signs, the Save West Lincoln Memorial Hospital portable sign, are those all portable signs that are not permitted to be erected? So, and then are we going to be enforcing that bylaw? I think that and I'll speak to this on the second round if I have an opportunity, but I think that there needs to be, we need to carefully take into account those Supreme Court challenges. And I really think we need to look at how we can be inclusive of those rights within our bylaw. And there's definitely enough language in there to protect the town from visual blight and garbage and litter and all of that. There was a lot of wording about where you can and can't do it and what you can do with it. So I think we could still do a permitting system at no charge and manage it with minimal cost. May not be totally cost recoverable, but it would meet that requirement of giving our community that right to freedom of speech and expression in the charter. So I just asked Mr. Maskeren if he could comment on that, please. Thank you.
Welcome, John. Good evening, and you're open to comment.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Councillor Bothwell. Thank you for from quoting from my article, which I still stand by. Ramsden was a very good decision of the Supreme Court of Canada, which basically said you can't have a bylaw that prohibits postering everywhere. Postering everywhere. We're not here looking to limit sign expression everywhere in the municipality. We're basically saying you can't have portable signs in residential and rural zones. In my view, quite a different connection there. No doubt whatsoever, a limit on the right to freedom of expression. The right to freedom of expression, of course, is not unlimited, and there's Section 1 of the Charter that's a reasonable limit in a free and democratic society. My view, having looked at it, having looked at the bylaw in total, I believe that there would be compliance with the Oakes test. That's the test from the Supreme Court of Canada in Regina versus Oakes from, I believe it was 1986, the Supreme Court of Canada. My view, the objective of the bylaw and the rational connection between the ability to still have some signage in other venues, other means, other forms of expression. I also do think that the sign bylaw would pass the minimal impairment test and that there's proportionality. So it would fit the Oakes test. I'm not aware of any other sign bylaw anywhere in Ontario, and I did a little bit of research. I can't say that I looked up every municipality, but I did do some research, could not find the same type of wording as Port Hope. I was very puzzled by the language in the Port Hope bylaw, and I gave their clerk a call, who was scratching her head going, what did we do? It can't be in our bylaw. And when I pointed out that it seemed to be in the bylaw, she was a little baffled by it, indicated she had nothing to do with it. And then when I spoke to her about some of my concerns, I think she sort of said, yeah, but we've never had an issue with it. Doesn't seem to have created a problem. I think Mr. Boyes has set out well some of the concerns about aesthetics, pollution, additional costs with having to pick up discarded signs or signs that are past the time limit, and additional enforcement measures. And finally, my only other comment is, and you've got a good point, Councillor Bothwell, should someone decide to challenge it, it could be, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal costs on a question of constitutional notice. Charter issues aren't easy to litigate, and should someone want to take on that mantle and bring the claim, that person might be subject to cost themselves. But yeah, it could be a significant cost to the municipality if the matter were to go to court and were to be litigated perhaps beyond one level of court. So I'm not going to minimize that. It would be a significant amount.
Thank you. And can I just get Henry to clarify if the hate has no home here and the slow down CAA signs on private property and the Save West Lincoln Memorial Hospital signs and the no more lockdown signs, are they all against the bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not all of those are a violation of the bylaw, because there is certain exemptions within our bylaw for portable signs on residential and rural properties. And so another thing that would be brought forward in these cases would be the acting discretion as laid out in the Provincial Offences Act for certain cases.
So, sorry, bylaw has discretion? Outside of our own bylaw, they can make their own decision?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, every provincial offences officer in Ontario has the discretion in every case.
So people can put, like right now, there's on my street a whole bunch of those hate has no home here and slow downs. You could have them on everybody's front lawn and it wouldn't be an issue?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be a situation that we'd have to assess if it were to come up, but unfortunately right now I don't really have an answer for you on that matter.
Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
So I find this coming back in this way very disturbing, because to me it reeks of curtailing free speech. And now you're telling me, Mr. Bose, that there are exceptions and we'll decide what they are. It's not for you to decide. It's the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They have decided what's acceptable, what's not. I don't think that signs have become a huge distraction unless you don't like what they say. And, the ones around here that I see say Save Main Street. And so I'm guessing you'd like to get rid of those. Maybe they wouldn't fit in, but slow down might be.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
No,
Those
don't
comments
interrupt me.
are unacceptable.
Don't interrupt
I think
me.
that she
please.
deserves that
Overruled.
an apology, because she's made an assumption where
Mr.
our
Mayor?
staff do not have an opinion
Mr.
on
Mayor,
certain matters.
It's point of
I
order.
demand an
It's
apology.
Point. And-
It's overruled. Councillor Vardy, just don't go any further.
Hey, could you please cut him off so he can't keep interrupting?
Mr. Mayor, I challenge your decision.
This is a
Then. It's going to be like
constant.
this.
This is
All right,
constant
what's your
thing that he
challenge?
does.
Your challenge is
And
that
it's
she
quite
deserves,
tiresome, and I've had
she
enough of
deserves
it.
to apologize, as she made an assumption that
Please
our
be
staff
quiet.
has an
No, I'm not
opinion
going to
in regards
apologize.
to.
He just said,
Councillor Ritchie, will you please stop interrupting?
Councillor Vardy, I'm
Can you
going to have to
apologize
stop
for
this.
that, please? So if I may continue, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you may.
So, Mr. Bose, can you tell me, seeing as you are the bylaw officer, would a Save Main Street sign be okay or not okay? If it's up to you, and you're saying it's up to your discretion, which is it, a yes or a no?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we don't actually govern the message as per the bylaw. There are specific exemptions to the save the main street. I believe are you talking about, just a clarification here, Save West Lincoln Memorial Hospital or Save?
I'm asking a specific question about how the bylaw would apply to the Save Main Street lawn signs, ones you stick in the ground. Would they be allowed or not allowed? Because you've stated that it's up to bylaw's discretion, which I don't agree with because I believe it's clearly set out in the charter. And so it's not really for you to decide. The charter has already made it clear. So what I'd like to know is, because I have a lot of residents in Ward 2 with Save Main Street signs, and they would want to know, are they allowed or not?
Councillor
allowed?
Bain, this discussion is fine. She's asked a proper question about discretion.
Information that she's incorrect. If you would like the factual information, I will present it.
All right, let's hear your factual information.
As a federal law officer for 32 years, I will guarantee you that bylaw has discretion, as does every law enforcement and peace officer in the country of Canada has discretion. So for her to challenge,
they have discretion to enforce the law, not make the law.
Councillor Vardy, let Councillor Bain speak right now. He's offering.
I would like to offer the rest of my opinion as a trained officer.
Why can't you offer his opinion when it's his turn to speak?
This all night long. If she wants to continue interrupting, I'll continue speaking over her.
You are the one interrupting me.
Councillor Vardy, that's your first warning.
I have raised a point of order, and I know Councillor Vardy and nobody else likes to be interrupted. I'm saying a point of order takes priority. All I'm saying is my professional experience, which no one else in here has as much as I do, with the exception of John Mascarin, who could probably put me to shame for knowing the law. But I'm telling you, discretion is a given right to every officer, peace officer, law enforcement officer within the country of Canada. Whether you like the opinion or not, that is fact. Mr. Mascarin can either agree or disagree with me if you wish to challenge my point there, but you cannot challenge Henry and say he doesn't have that right. He does have that right. That's the only point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to argue with anybody here. I'm just making a point of fact. That's all. Thank you.
May I continue now?
Yes,
please,
yes, Councillor Vardy, go ahead.
So I believe you're there to enforce laws, not to make laws. And I believe that's what Councillor Vane, I assume, is suggesting. So what I'm asking you very directly, the Save Main Street signs, because many of my constituents have Save Main Street signs on their lawn, are they allowed or not allowed? Simple question, straightforward question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is a granted exemptions under our bylaw for portable signs in residential and rural areas. So each case, for example, like you're bringing forward, we will have to review with the bylaw. So I recommend that that we follow this up with a report if you wish to gather that information, so I can go through the bylaw in its full and entirely give you a proper answer.
If I may continue then, Mr. Mayor, could we please have a proper yes or no answer by the next council meeting? Because the residents in Ward 2 who have Save Main Street signs, plus the various other signage in Ginsbee, these people want to know, are they following the bylaw or not? So unless we give them a very specific answer, they deserve that. They're owed that. And I'd like it for the next meeting so that the residents know, do they have to take down their signs? Do they have to take down the no lockdown signs? Do they have to take down the hate doesn't live here signs? I mean, we can provide you with a list and you can come back to us at the next meeting and say, this is okay, this isn't okay. This is quite a pressing issue. And quite frankly, I really believe we're just trying to curb freedom of speech. We all know where this whole discussion originated. And you're telling me that a bylaw doesn't need updating that's based on a municipal act that is out of date. There's a new municipal act that's come into effect. So that alone should cause our bylaw to be updated. So I'm just aghast at this whole thing, to be honest. So thank you. And I look forward to hearing your response, Mr. Bose, and so do the people of Ginsbee, because they, I'm sure, want to be law abiding.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to Mr. Mascaron. What would the legal test be when it comes to freedom of speech for these for portable signs? I saw you made mention of several of them in response to Councillor Bothwell's. So just curious what the test would actually be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. The question is the Charter, of course, and the Constitution are the supreme laws, and any law that isn't in compliance thereof could be struck down. So the test is, does it impede freedom of expression and is not a justifiable limit under Section 1? So you have to bring both in, which is what puzzled me about the Port Hope bylaw, because it just said freedom of expression under Section 2B of the Charter, without even bringing in the fact that the Charter is also Section 1, which is limitations. So the test, what I outlined was the 4 parts of the Oakes test, the 3 or 4 parts, which were the objective, the rational connection, minimal impairment, and proportionality. Those are all factors that you have to weigh and balance when considering if the limitation on any of the charter rights, any of the core charter rights under Section 2 have been infringed. Now, you've got to remember, though, clearly the municipality has the authority to regulate signage. It's clear. It's under the Municipal Act. Of course, it can only do so if it complies with the Constitution and the Charter. And the argument being, I think, that any limitation, any restriction on any signage, of course, restricts freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Of course it does. I don't think there's any question. It does. The question is whether there is a reasonable limit that can be justified under Section 1. My view, having read the bylaw in its totality, it appears that the restriction, the minimal restriction, in my view, on residential, rural, portable signs is a reasonable limit under Section 1. And so I do not agree that an exception as broad and quite honestly as unwieldy as what's in Port Hope is justified in this community. I don't think it's justified in any community, and I haven't seen that kind of language in any other sign bylaw that I've looked at, and I must have looked at about 30 of them just to see if there was anything close to that, and I didn't see anything.
Thank you. So the other question I have here too is that, so you have reviewed our bylaw, obviously. And so I would say that now this bylaw would be current and up to date, 2021. Would that be suffice to say?
Well, Mr. Mayor, through you, to be honest, Councillor Ritchie, I looked at it to see how it all hung together. I wanted to see if other portable signs were permitted in other places. I did not, and I was not asked to do a review of the entire sign bylaw. Could it use some updating? Of course, it is a few years old. It can, I know that municipality has other pressing concerns, other important things. Is it the most important thing that you have in front of you? Perhaps. I didn't think it was, and I wasn't asked to give a review to the entire sign bylaw. I was asked to look at this one very specific question. And yes, I did look at the rest of the bylaw in order to answer it, because the way you interpret a bylaw is, of course, not only to look at the specific wording and the exception, perhaps, but to look at it in its entire context. So I don't know that I agree with you that it's updated, current, and it's perfect. I think you could probably use some enhancement and some improvement.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, we have a resolution. I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain.
Sorry, did somebody say something?
Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that report BYL 21-08 portable signs on residential and rural properties dated August 23rd, 2021 be received, and that the Town of Grimsby make no changes to the sign bylaw 9745 and continue the enforcement of portable signs on residential and rural properties. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
No.
Councillor Cowell,
No.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
No.
Mayor Jordan.
No.
That's defeated.
Just a point of clarity, Mr. Mayor, are you saying that we have no more sign bylaw?
Apparently.
We have no sign bylaw at all in our town.
Yeah. It would revert back, right? Right. All right. Where are we moving to now? All right. Where's that? 7.2. All right. All right. Now we're moving to report 7.1A, report CORP 21-02 COVID-19 update report.
Thank you, Mayor
Eric?
Jordan. Thank you, Mayor Jordan. On behalf of the corporate leadership team and our EOC, we felt it was timely to provide a report on how things are going with the pandemic and how we've been managing it in 2021. We've given a lot of history of what's happened to date in the province, but what I wanted to talk about is a little bit about how we're moving forward. And as you can see in the report, we're looking at leveraging what we've learned through the pandemic as an accelerator for innovation. There's been a tremendous amount of innovation in the way we had to deliver services and the way that the Grimsby residents adopted some more online services that really assisted them get more expedited service as well as do it in a more efficient manner. So there's been some really good new ways that we've done our business, and we want to continue to drive that. We don't really want to go to the pre-pandemic days. We want to leverage what we've learned to move forward. One of the things that we'll be doing and starting in September 7th is more hybrid council meetings. This is where council will have the option to attend, but we'll have the technology available to make sure people that don't attend in person can log in. So we're going to be working towards that, and there's some benefits to that we've learned. You know, our staff can be more efficient, maybe working from their offices or in their home in the evening, as well as some council members. And we want to ensure the safety. So that's a key thing that we'll be moving forward with the hybrid. In October, if all things remain as good as they've been with the pandemic, we would start to introduce, you know, the public entering the council chambers. It would have to be screened. You know, we have limited room there. We still have to promote social distancing and mask wearing when people are moving about, but we would start to move forward on that. And then in November, because of some of the technology, everybody's working towards a hybrid solution. So there's a lot of shortages in the marketplace of some of this technology, but we're really hoping that we get some of the product November, December, and really allow the council members to be back at the chamber table together with proper mics and distancing between you. So we're hoping for that to happen in November, December, and that's only because of the technology lead times. There's going to be a cost to that, but it does qualify for the COVID funding we receive from the provincial government. We have to report on what we're using that funds for, and this would qualify. We also want to continue to promote remote working for our staff. It has worked extremely well. We did a survey with staff of about 82 people that had that opportunity, and they're really seeing it as a way to enhance us as an employer of choice and it will be seen as a retention factor. It also will really help us to improve our space planning for years to come in the town hall specifically. In the way that we've seen that we've worked together, we could reduce many of our office spaces and really extend the use of this facility for, at least a decade and maybe not 15 years to come by doing a little bit of, alternate work arrangements for our staff. We're looking at more collaborative spaces over time and, more healthy workspaces, which we'll continue to sanitize. We also, for our staff, have really worked hard over the last 18 months on helping them with some of the mental health stresses of coping with this, not only on their job, but also with their own families. We've promoted, some assistance through our EAP, EFAP, and we're also promoted a mental health program called Not Myself Today with staff that's still ongoing today to try and help them through. And it's really been received well by all of our staff across every division. We talked a lot about some of the cool operational enhancements we made that we want to continue with. And we want to continue to improve on that as we've learned from the pandemic. On the financial impacts, we saw that again in this year, it's about a $1.7 million impact of revenue losses mainly and cost increases. And we received about $650,000 from the province, but we have managed all of that. We actually cut discretionary spending. We watched our workforce planning. We didn't bring in some temporary staff throughout the year. And we were able to offset all those impacts. And we actually see that we should be hitting a surplus again in 2021. We'll have much more detailed information on that in November with our Q3 financials. But we are estimating that we've been able to manage those costs in the way we managed our business in a much better way to offset any revenue losses with cost adjustments within the corporation. So that was great work by every individual in the corporation, as well as our leaders. To conclude, I feel that this was a great team effort by council and the mayor at the EOC and our team to continue to manage the pandemic the way we have. I have to give a lot of credit to Bill Thompson, who had us working together on an integrated emergency model that really helped us work together as a team. And this is something we're going to build on for many years to come. This report is something that we want to keep in the archives, much like our 2020 report, in case the community ever, hits another pandemic or another emergency. But we've truly worked together well, and I want to thank council for supporting us through the 18 months, and we still have a little bit to go. So thank you very much, Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to recap the report.
Thank you very much for your report, CAO, and good work by all the EOC team. Councillor Bothwell.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This is a little bit, I don't know if it quite aligns with your report, but it also aligns with the IT report and consent. I appreciate hearing your work putting this together, and again, working with town staff to mitigate all the ongoing impacts of COVID and to try to keep our heads above water. It's appreciated, all the hard work of staff and your office. Is it possible, as we're looking at utilizing the modernization grants and some of the COVID funding, part of what IT is doing is improving the technology within the council chambers, the audio system, the mics, etc. The accessibility committee, or the representatives from it, Gordana Mosher, presented on the induction hearing loop, and that was implemented at the library recently to improve accessibility for those with hard of hearing. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to somehow integrate accessibility into these updates that we're doing in council chambers to make the public, to help the public better be able to participate in our public meetings. And if that induction hearing loop technology is something we could look at costing into that 40 to 60,000 hardware cost, or if there's additional COVID funding or accessibility funding that we could, it just seems timely that if we look at it now, making the whole experience for the public much more accessible. I just wonder if that's an option for Town Hall that we could look at now.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell, for the question, and I saw your email. So I have talked to Philip about that, and we will work together and maybe provide some future updates on that. But a great suggestion, and we'll be working with that individual or that organization that you sent to us, and we'll do more a deep dive on, is there additional costs? Can we maybe absorb that in the 60K, and we'll get back to you on that.
That'd be great, just because having participated in a lot of public meetings, I've heard from the people who are there that have hard of hearing issues, and they have said it's very difficult in chambers to hear. So I think anything we can do to improve that, and I don't know what it costs, but the library can maybe, you can figure out what the library's was, but appreciate that you're looking at perhaps moving that forward. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, again, thank you very much for your report, CAO. Need a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Cadwell, and seconder Councillor Sharp. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Sharp. Resolved that report CRP 21-02 Corporate Leadership Team COVID-19 Response Update dated August 23rd, 2021 be received for information, and that staff to continue forward with the corporate COVID-19 response as set out within this report. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to report 7.1B, report FIN 2122 consolidated financial statements, trust fund statements. Melanie, hello again.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Jordan. So just to provide some opening comments to this report. So staff and our auditors, Grant Thornton, have completed our 2020 financial statements and audit work on our consolidated financial statements and our trust fund statements. Both the statement and the audit report are in front of you this evening as Appendix A and B to the report. The draft statements that are being presented in front of you would receive an unqualified audit opinion. And once these statements are approved by council, staff can finalize the signing of the management representation letters and any finalization procedures. The statements would then be posted on the town's website and circulated to our partners as required. So there is lots of information in these financial statements. It's a beefy appendix, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have, but just a few notes I might highlight if I can. If you're looking at our statement of financial position, you will notice that we have both an improved net financial asset position and an improved reserve position. We discussed this at length when reviewing our year-end surplus and transfer report in June, that we did have surplus in 2020 and how we redirected those funds into our reserves. So you're seeing the same results consistent with that in these financial statements today. Certainly the COVID pandemic was disruptive to the town's operations, and we see lots of different variances from our budget to our actuals as a result of that disruption. But the surplus that was realized due to the extensive mitigations of staff and the late funding announcements was invested into the reserves. And as mentioned in June, staff are still working towards a comprehensive review of our reserves and our asset management needs, and we plan to bring that to council this fall in advance of our 2022 budget process. The report also highlights some other new items identified in these statements, but for the most part, outside of the implications of COVID, they're very consistent with the prior year statements and presentation. Also in attendance this evening, I want to introduce James Brennan. He's the audit partner from Grant Thornton who worked on our file, and I will turn it over to him and give him an opportunity to provide a few opening remarks on his audit report. And then as always, both James and myself are here to answer any council specific questions.
Thanks, Melanie. For some reason, I don't have video. Sorry about that. I'm not in Zoom calls very often, but anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity to present our audit results to you. I'm just going to highlight a few things in our audit results communication. The status is that we are substantially completed the audit. The only things remaining are the approval of the draft financial statements, the signing of the management representation letter, legal responses, and a few subsequent event procedures. The audit risks and results, or the audit risks identified in our planning document did not change, and the results of our areas of focus did not come up with any significant findings. There is a group audit with regards to the town of Grimsby, and that is because of the Niagara Power Incorporation statements, and those are consolidated into the town statements by modified equity, and so we have to do some work around those financial statements. We review the working papers of the their auditors and so on, and no significant findings were found there either. We do point out that there is one significant estimate, or there are several significant estimates in the financial statements which are disclosed in our document. Under adjustments and uncorrected misstatements, there were a couple of adjustments that we made, and one is basically to record the change in the investment in the GBE, and then there was another smaller one. There were a couple other items that were recorded that we identified as misstatements, but they were not overall material to the grand scheme of the financial statements. There was an internal control letter submitted with some findings, and management response were added to those. Nothing that would create any concern, great concern. These can be all remedied at some point. And then the only other appendix that I will highlight is that there are some accounting changes on the horizon, and we have to report those in our audit results memo. As Melanie stated, the audit report, it will be an unqualified audit report as in the past. Other than that, I'd just like to say to Melanie and her team, thank you very much for all their cooperation. This is the second year we've had to do the audit remotely. We're getting better at it, but it does take a lot of work and a lot of cooperation, and we had no problems getting that cooperation from Melanie's team. And again, as Melanie said, if there's any questions specifically, we're here to answer them.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, James. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, delegations and Melanie, for the report. Just two questions. First one is with respect to the 2 property revitalization tax increment grants. Apparently in 2019, and you mentioned there's 2 properties, the value was $627,765, and in 2020 it was $570,618. What can you please explain what those property revitalization tax increment grants are and who they were given to?
So through the mayor, you're correct, Councillor Bothwell, there is 2 properties. We did pay out some of our commitment in 2020 as one of the grants was finalized, and we paid out both the 2019 and 2020 year, which would change the valuation of our future commitment as we've already satisfied a portion of it. The 2 properties in question are 22 John Street and I believe 27 John Street. Are the 2 agreements that are approved at this time. We are currently only paying on one of them that is complete. The other one is in progress, and we're obviously recording the commitment, but we don't anticipate paying on that until approximately 2024.
Are those Brownfield, is that the Brownfield remediation credits, or is it, what's the actual, like, what's that credit actually for?
So this is a tax increment grant. So they're not necessarily brownfields. We have a tax increment grant program. I don't know for certain if both of these were brownfield redevelopments, but to the extent that these applications and these developments qualified for the tax increment grant program, they were reviewed and awarded the grant, which is basically equivalent to a reduction in the taxes, increase in the tax assessment that those properties are going to generate. And it's usually calculated over a 10-year period.
Thank you. The second question I have is Mr. Brennan mentioned the internal control letter, and I believe I saw one of these previously from Grant Thornton, and I don't see it attached with our attachments tonight. He mentioned the internal control letter identified some deficiencies and that management had responded. Do you have that letter, and are we just, is it being provided to council?
Maybe I can take a stab at that. It is provided this evening. It's Appendix B in the audit report. And in there, they reference the internal control letter, which is Appendix C to the Appendix B. So it starts on page 20 of the Appendix B. In there, there's two items, two deficiencies noted, and you'll see the auditor's comments, and then you'll also see management's response.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you again, Melanie and James. Seeing no further questions from council, need a mover and seconder for the resolution. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Sharp. Moved by Councillor Bain, second by Councillor Sharp. Resolved that report FIN 21-22 2020 consolidated financial statements and trust fund statements be received, and that the draft 2020 consolidated financial statements and trust fund statements in Appendix A be approved, and that the approved financial statements be finalized with the auditors and published on the town's website and circulated to stakeholders as required. All in favor? That's carried. Moving now to section 7.1C, report FIN 21-23 development charge demolition credit extension. Melanie, is that you again? All right.
Sure is. So this report is up for consideration this evening by council. Lissani Homes, who is the developer of 4 different properties listed in this report, has made a request to council to extend the eligibility period for their demolition credits. So our development charge bylaw allows a demolition credit period of 5 years, and that if a development seeks or requests a longer period, they can get an additional 3 years for a total of 8 years if they're able to demonstrate that the delays are due to the remediation work. So this report is a staff's assessment of that request from Lissani Homes. Of the 4 properties that they requested the demolition credit extension on, 3 of them as eligible per our bylaw, as this extension is only available to brownfield properties, which 3 out of 4 properties listed met that definition. So we're basically just asking council if they support that extension, in which case we would work with the developers to accommodate that. Happy to take any questions as required.
All right, just a quick comment. So these ones weren't expired then. So they're asking for an extension before it's expired, right?
Through you, Mayor Jordan, they did expire 2 of them. So there's 4 different properties. They applied in bulk for all of them as it's related to the one development for them. But 2 of them expired on May 25th, 2021, and they gave us their application prior to that expiry date, which is the requirement of the bylaw. So they are eligible for that extension because they did submit their application prior to May 25th.
Great. So they weren't like the other one that had expired 18 months prior. That's just my clarification.
Oh, fair enough. Yes.
Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thanks for the report, Melanie. And yeah, the one that 2 Winston Road, that was a residential piece of property, correct? Which was not even really connected to the fifth wheel truck stop. So, and I remember they had a swimming pool in the backyard. So yeah, that went through me a little bit, but I'm going to support your report, Melanie. Just a comment on that. I thought that was a little, different, but anyways, thank you very much.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. It did bring me back to the March 1st, 2021 Committee of the Whole, where the properties were put under the development charges request, and council considered whether we should extend them. And those 2 properties had the eligibility period had ended or was going to end based on the 48 months that was in our current DC bylaw. And at that meeting, council chose to extend the eligibility for those 2 properties as well, to this, or at least one of them, to the 60-month period on that chart. So there was a lot of discussion about retroactivity and whether these were expired or not credits at that time. So my question is, at that time we voted on the development charge demolition credit eligibility update, And the motion was that council endorse amending section 310 of the draft development charges bylaw to extend the eligibility period for development charge credits with respect to buildings or structures that are demolished as a result of development from 48 months to 60 months prior to the date of which the development charges are payable. So that ended up getting passed. I was a little confused when I saw this whole issue go to the region, and the region in their report said, well, we want to follow what the town's doing. And yet when this report in March was presented to us, it's, well, that's what the region's got in theirs. And then just last month, the region was saying, well, what does the town have as eligibility in theirs? So Melanie, I'm a little confused because it seemed like we were presented in March with this, that was what the region was already using, was the extension and that additional 30, the additional extension of the 36 months, I believe it was, to the period. And now it's coming back at us again saying, you know, should we approve these properties or not? So I'm just really confused about that. And at that time, we approved 2 Winston Road as being eligible for an extension, those 2 properties. And now I'm looking at the region saying it would never have qualified even as a brownfield or for the development anyway. So can you help me understand why the region is saying we want to do what the towns, you know, what the towns did, and then we were given this is what the region already does?
I can attempt. I might not have all the background to the March piece, so I may need to defer to the Director of Public Works in a moment. But my understanding, so the 60-month with the 36-month extension is consistent in both bylaws. And the May 25th expiry date, 2021, is the 60 months for 2 of these properties. I do have the appendix to that report, and I do believe it identified that 2 Winston Road was not an extended expiry. It had it as not applicable. And the other 3 properties were given extended expiry conditions. And I think it was, so I do believe that that's consistent. With regards to the region's position, so the region and town staff have been working together on this, and obviously our report cycles don't perfectly align. We did provide regional staff with direction of how town staff was going to be writing this report to make sure that both reports were being written from staff in a consistent manner. I think when they debated this at regional council, I'm not sure they were explicitly clear on that distinction, that these were staff recommendations that we were going to be bringing forward to our council for consideration. But both the staff reports were in alignment. And if the Director of Public Works has anything he'd like to add, I'm happy to pass it over to him.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So March meeting, the matter that was before council was essentially if we could extend or change the description in our bylaw from 48 months of eligibility to 60 months of eligibility. So that is what essentially council agreed to and endorsed back in March. It didn't speak specifically to any particular property in place. So essentially the applicant still had to apply to the town to request that extension, which is now the matter that is before council. Hopefully that clarifies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Seeing no further questions, just need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Cadwell. Seconder, Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Bain. Resolved that report FIN 21-23 development charge demolition extension credit dated August 23rd, 2021 be received, and that the eligibility period extension request from the Town of Ginsbee development charge demolition credits associated with the Brownfield redevelopment located at 362-398 North Service Road, commonly referred to as Fifth Wheel, be approved as per the table in this report and in accordance with section 310C of bylaw 21-14, and that the eligibility period extension request for the Town of Ginsbee development charge demolition credits associated with 2 Winston Road be denied. Councillor Bothwell.
Sorry, just one more quick question on the extended expiry dates in the report that's attached versus the one that we got March 1st. the 362, 398 North Service Road Motel and Underground Storage. The extension date in that report was May 6th, 2024. And here it is May 25th, 2024. There's just a bit of discrepancy on the dates. The other one for the restaurant is May 23rd, but I can see it's May 22nd would be the expiry. And the other one was June 5th in the report, and it's June 4th there. So the only one I'm questioning is the first one, because it's a discrepancy from what was in our March 1st report. And maybe Brandon can clarify before we vote.
Brandon?
I'd have to go back and look at that previous report. Just, oh, Mel is.
Sorry,
her hand
maybe
up.
maybe
Sorry.
I'll take it because I did look
Okay.
at that because I
Perfect.
noticed the same discrepancy when we were drafting the report. So I do believe it's a typo in the March report. As you can see from the dates in the eligibility period, it always was May 26th. And so if you add 60 months and then 96 months, it should be May 25th. And I believe when they were typing the eligibility ends, they just had a little typo there that they missed the 2.
Then it shouldn't be May 22nd in here either. Then it should be right
So on the Motel and Underground Storage Road, we went one day before the 8-year period. So May 6th,
if it was May 25th, it should be May 24th in your report. Sorry, oh, the Motel and Underground, sorry, yes, the Motel and Underground, May 25th. Okay, so the March 1st one where it said May 6th was wrong.
I believe that's a typo, yes.
And it should have been made
everything to the demolition permit dates, and that's what you're seeing tonight in this report.
Okay, it's not that it's a critical issue, it's just, it's another little oversight that just kind of, at this point, it didn't impact anything that we were doing on the March 1st meeting. I just want to, I think, yeah, it's just good to know that there's a discrepancy. Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
All right, so I read the resolution. Might just be easy to go for a recorded vote on this as well.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, we're moving to section 7.2A, Councillor Bothwell, inclusive municipalities, diversity.
Would you like, would you like me to speak to that, Mayor? Just
Yes, yes, if you'd like to speak to that first, and then you're welcome a second round if there are other comments.
I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've pretty well written it in the motion, and it's basically going back to a year ago when we joined that coalition of inclusive municipalities, and I think that we need to be accountable to our community as to what we've accomplished. So this motion is to try to bring forward a report to let the residents and the community know what initiatives we've taken. So hopefully I'll get the support of council on that. Thank you.
Any further discussion by council or Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, I guess, to Councillor Bothwell. I understand that we put the motion forward in 2020, and we've obviously been impacted with COVID. So I'm not sure. I know there's areas that we could improve, and there's areas that we may have done things, but I don't know if we'd have a very good picture as to where we may be or how things have worked out, because we haven't had really a lot of time to reflect and to measure what's been done, because we've kind of been in this lockdown thing for quite some time. So I didn't know if that if she wanted to defer this to a later date when hopefully we can open things up and look at it, or if she still wants to go ahead. But I just wanted to bring that question forward to her.
I'll just respond quickly that the commitments that we came with the agreement were that we would report publicly on an annual basis. So even if we report that there were challenges, I think it's important that we do that report publicly on an annual basis as per our commitment. Thank you.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Just in the last I believe it's the last paragraph, the creation of a council and citizen advisory committee. Obviously, this will be something new, so could you comment your ideas to that, Councillor Bothwell, a little further?
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I think that this is a first step towards taking a concrete action to involve the community in the decision-making and stuff as we go forward on being more inclusive. They're the ones that can really help us form it and bring ideas forward and make it a reality. So I think it's just to get a draft terms of reference at this point. There are other communities, many other ones in the Niagara region that already have these type of advisory committees. So it would basically be taking an existing model and just trying to look at what would work for Grimsby and bringing that draft forward for consideration at this point, hopefully in Q4. Thank you.
So they do have other municipalities in Niagara already do have these committees set up in that?
As far as I'm aware, I'm sure, I believe St. Catharines does for sure. I know the region does. There's a bunch of other smaller municipalities that are working towards it. CAO Schlang may know better than I do, but just from what I've seen with some activity from municipalities, they seem to be creating them, especially now that it's a very high profile and needed type of community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you.
CAO.
Thank you, Mayor, to Councillor Bothwell and Councillor Cadwell. Yes, both the region and the city of St. Catharines have these committees. They've hired full-time people to work with these committees. So, you know, we'll take this motion and see what staff time it would take for Grimsby, but hopefully we could leverage some of the staff that have been working on that in those two committees, both at the region and St. Catharines. Thank you.
Councillor Vane.
I'm thinking we went to committee of the whole because it allowed us to address more. I think we already have a very vibrant opportunity for delegates to come forward. I don't think adding another committee, I think that's just adding more layers of bureaucracy, I guess. I don't know what the right word is, but we have an opportunity for people to come forward, whether virtually or in person in the future, it looks like, which is great. And I encourage people to get involved. We also have the right for people to reach out to us. I don't see the need to burden staff with another committee. I just think our staff right now are getting killed. I mean, I talk to them on a regular basis and they're just overwhelmed as it is. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I appreciate what Councillor Bothwell is suggesting is that we want to have people input, but I think we have great input now. I mean, especially with some of the controversial issues we've had recently. There's been a large barrage of emails, phone calls. We've had delegations. I think the system we have in place is sufficient for the time being. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to, you know, I understand Councillor Vane's points and I kind of support that. But I also sit there and think that if we're looking at this advisory committee, the CEO made a very valid point that these other committees have full-time staff. And I think that if we're looking to form a committee, that all costs should be also recognized at that time before we make any decisions. So I'd like to see that the cost be put into it, because would this mean that we have to hire a full-time staff? Where we go with this, yes, we can have committee members, but you know, a lot of times committee members aren't the experts. We need to have an independent, you know, opinion or an expert that that would look after this group. So I think all costs should be also affiliated with this.
Councillor Sharp.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. So my question is, those costs and those considerations, will they be included in the report from the CAO? Or will we be directing the CAO to, or the town staff to make the creation of a council and citizen advisory committee on diversity inclusion be brought forward for consideration in Q4? Okay, so if you could just, is this too, are we directing staff to make a committee or terms, or will that come for a vote in fourth quarter?
So the intent.
CAO. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Bothwell.
I can let the CEO respond. I think the intent is
Sure.
just to draft.
The way I'm interpreting, but I would like Councillor Bothwell's approval of this, is that, it'd be brought forward for consideration and we could provide, other options or staff time or cost. And hopefully you would make a decision at that point whether you want to go ahead with the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions and comments, moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Vardy. Whereas on August 17th, 2020, Council passed a resolution to support the request from the Region of Niagara and join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. And whereas the staff report supporting this resolution states that the town of Ginsbee is committed to tackle racism and discrimination and promote human rights and diversity. Commitments to accessibility, social inclusion, and cultural diversity appear in a number of the town's strategic documents, including Council's strategic priorities 2019 to 2022 and the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan. And whereas the declaration to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities sets guiding common commitments for all municipalities, and whereas the declaration also provides that the municipalities will exchange their expertise and share best practices with the other municipalities involved in the coalition and will report publicly on an annual basis on actions undertaken towards the realization of these common commitments. Therefore, be it resolved that the Chief Administration Officer be directed to report back to Council on the achievements and steps taken since August 17th, 2020 towards the declaration's common commitments, and that the CIO provide Council with the town's action plan on diversity, inclusion, and equity following the common commitments, and the creation of a Council and Citizen Advisory Committee on diversity, inclusion, and equity with the appropriate terms of reference be brought forward for consideration in Q4. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's carried. Sorry, I think Councillor Vane, I think Councillor Sharp answered instead, so there was a.
That's okay. I was going to thank him later for it, but yes, I agree. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're moving to section 8.2A, Tri-Sport Event Request Letter. Sarah, welcome.
Sorry for the delay, Mayor Jordan.
That's all right.
Quickly share this update. Tri-Sport did do an event in mid-August, quite successful, and a lot of people were really happy to see the triathlon pieces returning. So they are hopeful to do another event in September. It's pretty much similar to what they've done in the past, and all the approvals that they will need, we are working with them to achieve. So just looking for council support for their event in September.
Great, thank you. It was an excellent event, and I'm sure the next one will be as well. So it's nice to see them out there again. Any comments from staff? I just need a mover and second, or sorry, council. If there's none, moved by Councillor Sharp and seconded by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that correspondence received from Tri-Sport Events Incorporated, Race Director Nick Stair, dated August 16th, 2021, requesting permission to use town roads for their events, including Sunday or scheduled Sunday, September 12th, 2021, be approved, subject to the insurance of a valid permit notification to the Niagara Regional Police and EMS, and the approval of an event safety plan consistent with COVID-19 guidelines. All in favor? Oh, Councillor Vardy, you wanted to speak on that or not? I think we voted on it and it looked like everyone is in favor, so that's carried. Moving to 9.2A, Councillor Bain, traffic and paid off-duty
Mayor
officer.
Jordan,
Yes.
I'm going to have to leave the meeting. So I'm just wondering if I could make some comments before I go, because I just found out our stolen car has been recovered and found in Welland. So we have to go get it. I just have a couple comments if you would indulge me. If not, that's okay. But
yeah, understanding that this is extenuating circumstances with the stolen Cadillac from your mother-in-law's. So I will allow you some comments.
okay, thank you so much, Mayor Jordan. I guess the one thing I wanted to make, or a couple things. One, as you know, the Santa Emilia, you probably read it in the paper. I just think we should give out a shout out to one of our citizens, Rob Hatton, because of what he's been raising money for West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, I think for the last 6 years. And this past car rally, which brought people from all over Ontario and even from Quebec, raised over $125,000, as well as put challenges out to some businesses to match that money. So it was an incredibly successful event. And I just think Rob Hatton should get some recognition, because it's him and his team of volunteers that helped to make that happen. Next thing, there was Councillor Cadwell and I attended a neighborhood meeting in Centennial Park on Thursday night. It was very well attended. Over 100 people came out to have a Q&A with their councillors. And I was just going to suggest that it works so well that if we ever needed to have, during COVID and the weather's right, an open public meeting, there were over 100 people there. So if we have an item that we know of is of great interest and people want to be able to speak, or maybe they don't feel comfortable on Zoom, I thought that was a great opportunity. And lastly, I guess I want to say that I know these are summer holidays. I think it'd be really good if staff put out who was acting for them while they're on holidays, because last week I phoned our CAO, never got the call returned. I phoned someone in planning staff twice, never got my call returned. And that's just not right. And I know Councillor Sharp suggested that he could get my calls returned, but I don't think that's really the role of another councillor. As a councillor,
Councillor Vardy, what I said was that if someone has a question, they can call me. Not that if I could get your calls returned. I said if someone has a question, they can call me.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, though. That's
all right,
what I
so
said.
I'll just refer my residents to you then. All right, so that was it for me. Thank you very much. And I hope I can get a response from the CAO about getting calls returned. I'd really greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Well, now we'll go back to our regular resolutions and regular meeting. So we have a resolution by Councillor Vane on traffic safety. Councillor Vane, you wanted to speak on that?
The intent of the motion is supposed to be get a report from staff. I would very much think, based on recent viewings, Niagara Regional Police has been very active in our in the West End that I've seen, and probably other areas of Grimsby. And they within a 5-minute period, they caught somebody speeding excessively in Winston Road, where Councillor Bothwell is asking to have the speed limit reduced. And it just proved the point that we can reduce the speed limit all we want, but if we don't have enforcement, we're wasting our time. And then another time, again, that officer only sat there for 5 minutes and then left. They came in during a very dead time, so I wasn't expecting a lot, but still they got one. And then another time, another officer sat near the corner where there's a stop sign, and within a 15-minute period stopped 3 drivers from rolling through the stop sign for anybody who's not aware, I think my father, who's a retired police officer, once said it best: stop means stop. Doesn't mean slow down, take a look, and then roll through. So like I say, they got 3 drivers, which is 3 points each plus a penalty. So I just think that we need to really look at doing enforcement. I know it's been suggested that this is something we should be kicking back to the region, but I know in the past, the region has indicated that, they only have so much money to spend themselves, and police officers are not cheap. So my motion or notice of motion is to get a staff report on the possibility of running a 6-month pilot within Grimsby as a whole, and dedicating $50,000 to the project. And basically what that would work out to is about, I'm just going off the top of my head here, I think approximately 8 days a month of an 8-hour shift of an officer going all over Grimsby, doing radar, checking stop signs, watching cars running red lights. The idea is if people start to see the police being more active, people become more conscious. You only have to see them once to make it stick in your head. And trust me, I say that from experience from many years ago. But it's just something I think we should seriously consider, but I would like staff input. It's not something I just think we as council should just vote on. I would like to refer it back to staff for input and see what they think of the idea. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, and I think it does say that in the resolution, if I'm correct. So, Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought that Councillor Vane was lifting his motion and not having it be spoken to tonight, but I gather he's moving forward with it. So in that case, I have a little bit of a concern in the sense that we're looking at supplementing the Niagara Region Police Service and doing the job that our taxpayers are paying them to do for us. And where there's a shortage of support and enforcement, we're looking at having our taxpayers pay more to provide that service to the town internally. And I think what we need to do is lobby the region to try to see if we can get increased services somehow with the significant growth we're having in Grimsby, and somehow look at the region taking that on and providing some feedback and the report at their level. I'd like Councillor Furtick or yourself, Mayor Jordan, maybe I'd refer this back to the region to perhaps have them look at ways to provide greater assistance to Grimsby rather than us forking out some more taxpayer money for a short-term solution. It's a pilot, but even then a pilot is our money for something that we should be expecting that service regardless.
I just want to clarify something, Mayor Jordan, and to Councillor Bothwell. Sorry, what I was saying, and maybe I misspoke when I talked. My purpose here is to have this sent back to our staff first, to do a report on it, not to discuss the motion tonight. I'm sorry if I went overboard by discussing it, but that wasn't my intent. My intent was to have it referred back to staff to get them to report on it. While I do agree with what Councillor Bothwell is saying, I think in the past on the experiences I've had with the region, we're not going to get anywhere, but I would like our staff to comment on the motion as I put it forward to see if they feel it's feasible or reasonable.
Well, your wording is confusing, Councillor Vane. It says, therefore, be it resolved that council endorse the allocation of $50,000 to fund the pilot. So that paragraph, the second to last one, is if this motion is passed as it is endorsing that budget funding, which I can't do outside of the budget period. So the way it's worded right now, I have a conflict with. So if you want to change that to be it resolved that staff investigate funding a 6-month pilot project and remove the $50,000 and have them come, because you're asking them to provide the cost and yet you're putting a $50,000 amount in there. So I would suggest if you do a friendly amendment that just says that staff investigate funding a 6-month pilot project for the purposes and remove the allocation of $50,000, then I may have a better feeling about it.
I have no problem with that. The reason just for your information, Councillor Bothwell, the reason I put the $50,000 was because I did some costing through the NRP just to see what it would be. And that $50,000 worked out to, like I say, approximately 8-hour shifts per month. which I thought was quite substantial in allowing us to get some enforcement out there. And again, it's just in support of, like, for example, your motion of lowering the speed limit to 40 kilometers. Without enforcement, 40 kilometers means nothing. Just means we have people do.
Let's focus on your motion, not divert to mine. And what I would suggest is, if you're welcome to the friendly amendment, that it say that staff investigate funding a 6-month plan, not endorse the allocation of 50,000, because I can't do that outside of the budget. Thank you.
Yep, that's fine.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I like the notice of motion. It gives us options. That's all it is. And again, it's asking staff for a report. The 50,000 doesn't bother me. You could say to a limit of 50,000. That opens the whole spectrum up completely.
Well, we've had a friendly amendment, so the 50,000 has been taken out of it. So that's kind of a moot point now. But Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Jordan. I'd like to make a motion to refer this to town staff, that they make a report.
I think if,
you second that?
I think if we read the
I'll second it.
resolution. All right.
Yeah, so referral, please.
All right. I know. That's what I'm trying to explain. Well, do we want to refer it? Because essentially that's what this resolution
Yeah,
says.
refer it, and it keeps the same language, the original motion.
Yeah, I would refer it.
All right.
Town staff.
So they want to refer it, so it
Can we just refer the original motion?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Maybe Councillors Ritchie and Sharp on that one.
all right. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that item regarding paid off-duty officers be referred back to staff for a report to council. All in favor? It looks like it's carried. All right, notice the motion. All right, we're moving to 6.4A, report BYL 21-07 Clean Yards Bylaw. Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you want me to speak on this?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we brought this report forward and a proposed clean yards bylaw, essentially repealing our current clean yards bylaw number 17-17 as amended, and combining it also with the graffiti bylaw number 1236 as amended. So on May 17th, the Town of Guernsey Council approved the proposed schedule for review of the frequently requested bylaws. And so upon review and updating with current standards, we found that most clean yards bylaws referred to the clean yards side of it and the graffiti side of it. So as per a organizational point of view, we thought we would combine it into one singular bylaw called known as the clean yards bylaw. So we did benchmark with a lot of municipalities and updated a lot of the standards to the region's norms. So at this time, I'll be taking any questions or concerns from any members. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Any questions or concerns from council? Councillor Bothwell?
Thanks again, Mayor Jordan. Thanks, Henry, for the draft. I also appreciate, because I did ask you for copies of the red line versions of what changes were made from the previous bylaws into this one, which I received this afternoon, and have quickly had a chance to go over it. The other counselors, I don't know if they've been shared that, but I just have a few questions for you. When you incorporated the graffiti bylaw, you didn't carry forward the description of what graffiti is. Is there a reason you didn't carry the description forward? Because in the graffiti bylaw, it does make exceptions for like visual art, murals and stuff like that.
So under section 4.0, the draft bylaw, exterior walls.
Yeah, I know it's under 4.4, but you didn't put it under, you didn't define graffiti in the definitions at the beginning. So I think a definition of what graffiti is from the former bylaw would be helpful, so that it doesn't incorporate things like special murals or whatever they're painted on exterior walls.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just from reading it, free from unsightly chalk marks, graffiti, painted slogans. So just taking a read through, it was my understanding that I meant to put unsightly graffiti under that as well. So that is my mistake there. And I will take your concern there into
you know what I mean, though, is actually in the definitions, actually defining what graffiti is. The actual.
You are correct. You are correct.
Okay. So what you're saying is you will add the definition of graffiti into the definition sections 2.0.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. I will be adding that.
Okay, thank you. That would just help to ensure that it's very clear. There's a few administrative typos and lining up and sentences that don't make sense and semicolons where they shouldn't be. We can do that later, but I would suggest that we refine that, because there's a few periods, sections where for instance, in 6.3b, injurious insects, termites, rodents, vermin, or other pests or other, and then it should be, instead of C, it should continue. It should say, or other conditions which may result in the harboring of such pests. So that shouldn't actually be C. It should actually be one complete sentence. Okay, so those types of things, but you and I can go over that later. I won't do it in this public forum. The other thing about 4.4, where we talk about every owner shall keep their land clean and free from unsightly chalk marks, graffiti, painted slogans, or defacements on the exterior surfaces of buildings or structures, including fences. Can we add and sound barrier walls, like those like facing the North Service Road and stuff? Those, so the interior wall that is like a common element or a condominium responsibility, they'd be responsible for. The exterior wall, which is town land or whatever, or on the berm side, would be the town's responsibility to keep clean. They just seem to be a particular target, those sound, I don't know if you call them sound barrier walls or whatever, but I would like to make them a specific item in here, just because they're so frequently tagged and by the railroad tracks, et cetera, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is something that should be added, and I completely agree with that, and we will add that and take notes on that.
Okay, and can you tell me why you changed the vegetation on property 6.0, 6.1 from 8 inches down to 6 inches for the height of grass or grass or similar vegetation? Why did you reduce that from 8 inches to 6?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So with some benchmarking with other municipalities, so more mainly Fort Erie with the most updated clean yards bylaw, we found that most bylaws have now come down to the standard of 6 inches. I thought it would just it would be more appealing to other residents for issues like this to bring it down and try to keep the grass and weeds down to a minimum.
Okay, this is specifically grass or vegetation, not weeds.
Yes, just similar vegetation is included in that weeds. My apologies.
So people who have grass that's 8 inches tall is too long. It has to be 6 inches. I just have a little bit of concern about this particular thing where you talk about grassy boulevard portion of any highway or part thereof, because Grimsby Green has been talking about increasing pollinator habitat. We passed a motion recently to increase pollinator habitat in our development proposals. And some of the town-owned properties, the grassy boulevards, or they're actually the Grimsby Green was looking at inclined areas, like the ones that are abutting a berm, for instance, that are town property. And so we're just thinking that sometimes keeping that naturalized is a better environment for pollinators, as well as something we're looking at. So I just don't want to see us restrict those opportunities by the wording that's being put in here, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, and I did suggest at Grimsby Green that they talk to you about our property standards as well for this, so that we can align what our goals are with what is good community practice, right? So I just want to make sure we don't infringe on that opportunity to, and I don't know, maybe it means we have to go to Grimsby Green with this, just to say, hey, is there something in here that we should look at from a climate perspective or from a green perspective, that we can ensure that this Clean Yards bylaw also doesn't infringe on that, if you know what I'm saying. So I'll leave it at that. I think I just had one other thing, and then I might end up referring you to Grimsby Green just for the sake of getting their input. You did mention that in 11.10, an officer is authorized to enforce an order issued under section 12.5 of this bylaw that has not been complied with by the owner. There is no section 12.5. So you'll need to change that, because I don't know what section you're referring to. And then your last sentence, 13.5, you say bylaw number 1717, 1747, 1236, and 1721 as amended are repealed, but that's not in your recommendation in the report 1 and 2. In number 2, it doesn't mention 1721. So it's just an oversight in the recommendation of the memo that goes with it. So I'd like to, those are just some things, and I'll go over you with some of the little typo things, but would you be happy with sending this off to Grimsby Green just for a quick review by that committee to see if there's anything in there that if I say we refer it, put a motion to refer it for staff to bring to Grimsby Green just for review and consideration?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, right now at this time, I don't really agree with that. We just want to try to push forward with this bylaw with the current things that you have brought forward to me, and we will make the necessary changes that you have advised me on.
Okay, so then there's potential for Grimsby to come back and make additions or enhancements through a committee recommendation to council. Would that be what we would have to do if there was a change requested?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan and Henry. Thank you for all the work you put into this. I really like that we're moving forward. 8 inches to 6 inches. If you can see it, there's 8 inches. It's pretty high. So good work, Henry. Thank you.
Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Henry. Good report. I agree with the 6 inches, especially in this day of ticks and other things. I think that's a very, very good choice. And I know there's a number of fields that are owned by developers that are substantially over 8 inches even. Some are feet. As far as the suggestion we go to an advisory committee, I think that Councillor Bothwell has a point in that if the committee has something to say, please feel free to bring it forward. But again, they're an advisory committee. We don't want to be bogging down our whole system constantly going to these advisory committees, because unfortunately sometimes the advisory committees think that they have more rights to dictate than to give advice. So if the committee has something, and I do support the Grimsby Green Committee, I think it's a fantastic committee.
I object to that comment, Mayor Jordan. I object to that random comment that the committees dictate.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Bothwell.
Okay, Mr. Mayor Jordan, maybe you missed the part where I said I can give facts. If we like, we can go down that road.
Saying committees have advice that that you don't agree with. I just don't, I don't think it's appropriate at this time, so.
I didn't say I didn't agree with them. I just said that sometimes I feel that committees are feel very strongly that they have a right to comment on things.
Well,
when they're advisory
Councillor Bain, they do
committees.
have a right to comment. That's what they're there for. So
Point of order.
Okay.
Comment.
Point of
Yes,
order, Mayor
Councillor
Jordan.
Ritchie, what's your point of order?
This conversation is getting off topic.
I agree.
Please do not, yeah, so let's get back on track.
All I'm saying
This
is
is a
my
bylaw,
opinion.
and this is our bylaw officer talking about a bylaw. And
Yeah.
there should be no committee going in. If they don't like the bylaw, they can comment after we decide. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I was.
And there should be no counselor making an opinion on committees because it has nothing to do with.
With all due respect, Mr.
Counselor,
not all
Mayor
of-
Jordan, I agree.
Yes.
Committees,
all of
staff,
us are going to go.
counselors
to the-
should never be making comments. You are correct.
personal opinions.
Absolutely. So Councillor Vane, just continue
All
on.
I'm saying is that we as a council can decide this, and I am entitled to my opinion. That's what I was elected for. I'm not going to go to the newspaper to give my personal opinion on things. I'm going to go to the council here, talk to my peers, make my opinion as an elected councillor, which I was elected to do, speak on behalf of people. And I agree with Henry and a lot of things he said. But as Henry said, he's the bylaw officer. He is the expert. Again, I come back to that. He is the expert. So let's hear what he has to say, because I agree with him. Going to a committee to get an advice, the committee is there. If they have something to say, then say it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying sometimes I think some people don't understand the roles, is all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm not trying to run anybody down. I'm just saying.
Yes, I think, can we just move on? Councillor Ritchie, you're next.
Okay, well, hold on, I haven't finished. I was trying to say a point there. We are the council. We were elected to make the decisions. If people want to have input, anybody can come and have input. That's all I wanted to say. And I support what Henry said. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. Through Mayor Jordan. I agree with Randy. I agree with our bylaw officer. And I agree with Councillor Cadwell that we need to move, that it's nice to see us moving forward. And I want to thank Henry for all the time and effort that you put into this. I'm sure you spent quite a bit of time. And anytime you spend that much time into developing and merging a couple of bylaws into one, you're bound to have mistakes. They happen. Great work. Again, yeah, I think that all of our committees, no matter what they are, we set the policy. If they don't agree with the policy, they can come forward with recommendations after the fact. But we have to first develop the policy, then we move forward. Sometimes policies are developed at that committee level. I'm glad to see that you took the initiative here. You did a great job. Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you again, Mayor Jordan. Just to close that loop, that my comment was that Grimsby Green had already passed a motion to discuss with staff on the property standards and the clean yards bylaw on the grass height and the weeding and the trimming of town property. So it's not that, I think anytime we can consider the input of our advisory committees in any decision council makes prior to making it, that's a valuable tool. Yes, council totally can approve this, and away we go. What it is it's actually taking into consideration the other committees that may be impacted by the decisions that we make and asking for their input prior to us bringing this forward. So I would just ask staff to maybe look at that prior to bringing something to council, that they do look at input from any advisory committee that may benefit from having input into our review of these bylaws. That's my intention. And I think every advisory committee can bring forward some valuable information and insight. And we shouldn't be, we can say after the fact, well, you can look at what we've done and then comment on it. We've already said we're reaching out to staff, so that door was supposed to be open. So I'm just hopeful that for future, we look at reaching out to our advisory committees before we make our final decisions, because that's what they're there for. Thank you.
Thank you. As the CIO said, it's much better to operate with communication, not in silos. Councillor Ritchie.
I just had a quick question. When was that motion passed by Grimsby Green?
The last meeting.
Last meeting. So the minutes haven't been approved yet. I don't know how you would expect staff to know that these things were passed without approval of minutes of council. That's just the only point I want to make. I want to make that clear. Thank you very much.
That's why I raised it tonight, so that they would be aware that Grimsby Green is reaching out on these issues. Thank you.
And we still haven't approved their minutes.
All right, we need a mover and seconder, seeing no further questions. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bain, that resolve that report BYL 21-07 proposed clean yards bylaw dated August 23rd, 2021 be received, and that bylaw number 17-17 is amended, bylaw number 12-36 and bylaw number 17-47 as amended be repealed and replaced with the proposed clean yards bylaw.
Sorry, Mayor, you need to add in that recommendation, that other bylaw, 1721, which is what I mentioned to Henry. It was missing in the recommendation.
All right.
Point of clarity, Mayor Jordan, does Henry agree with that?
Henry, do you agree with that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I do agree with that.
Great, thank you. All right, all in favor? That's carried. Now we move to section 11, notice of motion. Introduction date, August 23rd, 2021. Subject indoor swimming pool requested by Councillor Frake. Whereas the town of Ginsbee is a vibrant, growing community with pent-up demand for year-round aquatic programs for all ages of residents. And whereas the town of Ginsbee swimming pool is a popular activity that is enjoyed by all ages, indoor pools should be a core recreational and health-related service. And whereas in recent surveys around the country, 60% of households participate in swimming at indoor aquatic facilities, including learn to swim, special interests, for example, diving, synchronized swimming, etc., swimming leadership, aquatic fitness, and community rentals. And whereas currently the Lions Club community pool is only accessible 2 to 3 months of the year, and because it's an outside pool, it is also hampered by weather, thus a closure factor even in summer, and the YMCA is private and expensive and inaccessible for most residents. Therefore, our residents must travel outside of Ginsbee in the off-season. And whereas learning how to swim can be a lifesaver, and death by drowning continues to be one of the top killers of children in the summer months. And while accidents do happen, giving a place to take swimming lessons close to their homes can save lives in the future. Whereas our community is on Lake Ontario, and according to the national statistics, drowning is the second leading cause of unintentional injury-related death to children ages 1 through 14 years. So it is crucial that all children learn how to swim at a young age. And whereas indoor aquatic programs can also help people who have arthritis, diabetes, and similar conditions who are normally prevented from doing heavy workouts in an indoor year-round swimming pool and aquatic program is the most recognized activity for people with these ailments because water supports 90% of the body weight. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to provide a report on costing of an indoor pool aquatic program in the town of Ginsbee and any possible sites, including a redesign of Ginsbee Peach King Center expansion. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the September 7th meeting. All right, now we're moving to section 12, correspondence. Need a mover and seconder. Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Under correspondence, the correspondence with regards to the PSA test for men, and I look to have the support of council that we strongly endorse this.
So you want it lifted to discuss separately? Is that what you want?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
I'd like to hear everybody else's comments. Thank you.
All right. So need a mover and seconder for the rest of the correspondence. Got Councillor Sharp, Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that the correspondence under Administration and Finance pertaining to memorandum from the Deputy Minister, Kate Manson Smith, MMAH, Main Street Recovery Act, proclamation of amendments to the Municipal Act and the City of Toronto Act. Town of Niagara-on-the-Lake letter petition E-3351, correspondent for Public Works, Niagara Region information on new blue box regulation and request for data be received. All in favor? That's carried. So Councillor Cadwell, did you want to speak on the National Health System, the PSA test?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. And I'm really glad to see this has been brought up again because this has been ongoing for a number of years, trying to get the province, the feds involved, but get support for financial support from the province to have the screening paid for by the province. I remember with lobbying with my career earlier in my career with the firefighters in the province of Ontario. They did a very strong lobby to the government and governments, I'll say. Again, it's been ongoing for a long time. I think this initiative is hopefully they're going to be listening. And again, they're saying it's about $33 for the test. I did a little bit of research because there are other tests for cancer. A mammogram is approximately $80, and I totally support that. That's great that the women can get tested, and even if it's a financial burden at all, but at least they're supported and get tested by the province. So yeah, I look to council to strongly endorse this, and hopefully we can keep the fight going as a survivor, and look forward to. I'm personally going to be speaking with our MPP again. I've had conversations with Mr. Oosterhoff. So, but again, I'm really glad to see this again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Just need a seconder for the resolution. Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolve the correspondence from the town of Cochrane regarding PSA tests for men covered in the National Health System be endorsed. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. The next meeting of the Committee of the Whole is scheduled for September 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned. We will be back in 10 minutes for the regular council meeting. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
All right, welcome back. I'd like to call to order Town of Ginsbee Council meeting for Monday, August 23rd, 2021. Now, would everyone stand for the playing of O Canada? All right, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we move to approval of the agenda. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Bothwell. Seconder, Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of August 23rd, 2021 be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Moving to number 5, adoption of the previous minutes. Need a mover and seconder to adopt the previous minutes. Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Sharp. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Sharp. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole minutes of August 3rd, 2021, Council minutes of August 3rd, 2021 be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Now moving to bylaws, need a mover and seconder for bylaws. Councillor Bothwell, question?
Yeah, I have a question on the bylaws. The bylaw that you're going to read is the a bylaw to amend 2065 governing the proceedings of council. I just need the clerk to clarify if the bylaw should refer to the previous amendment that we did on July 12th, 2021, because it just says, as whereas the Council of Corporation of Grimsby approved the bylaw 2065 on September 15, 2020, but it does not say as amended because it was amended by council on July 12th.
I know clarity, Mayor Jordan. If we amended it and then we passed it, it would just be referred as that. Wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be referred as amended.
Well, the municipal act is as amended. So I think anytime that you amend a bylaw.
Yeah, it should be as amended, I believe.
I would ask the clerk to clarify if that wording should be incorporated into the bylaw.
Sarah?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, yes, I
Yes.
will update that as amended.
Thank you.
That's so noted, Councillor Bothwell. Did you want to be the mover for this resolution?
Not really.
Okay, all right, we need a mover and seconder. Councillor Sharp is a mover. seconder, Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 2160 and the same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Mover and seconder for second and third reading. Councillor Sharp, Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-60 read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Next meeting of, are there any announcements? Sorry. Councillor Cadwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. I also too want to thank staff for the AMO conference, the information package, the setting of the delegations, the bios. Great job to our town staff to really keep us in the loop for this AMO conference. I really enjoyed it very, very much. Even though it's virtual, which is not one of my strong parts, I'll just call it that. But I really look forward to, I believe next year it's heading back to Ottawa, Mayor Jordan. So hopefully we can all get back to seeing one another and do a lot of good networking as councillors, working with the AMO conference. It was good. It was a great experience, and I thank staff for all the good work that they helping us to look good. So thank you very much. The other thing I just want to say is I want to reach out and thank Councillor Furtick. We had a couple tours. One was at the water treatment plant on the North Service Road, and the other one was at the Baker Road waste treatment plant. So they were good, very informative. Learned a lot. For me, it brought back some old memories. So yeah, thanks again, Councillor, for that invitation, and I highly recommend it. If anybody has the opportunity, even schools, Councillor Furtick, I think that'd be great for, education-wise, eh? But yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Jordan. I would just like to remind our residents that the Grimsby Author Series is the fall 2021 amazing Grimsby Author Series is tickets are on sale now. They went on sale August 19th. There's three sessions, Monday, September 13th at 7, October 18th at 7, and November 22nd at 7. Tickets are available from the Grimsby Library website. They are Zoom webinars again, but they're an awesome opportunity to meet the authors of some really, really great books. It's for a great deal. All three packages, all three sessions are available for a package price of $25, a really great deal. Some of the authors at the September event are Operation Angus by Terry Fallis, Winter Wives by Lyndon McIntyre. The October one is Tuscan Daughter by Lisa Rochon, Even So by Lauren Davis. And then the November session is 6 Weeks to Live by Catherine McKenzie and Lethal Lesson by Iona Wishaw. So get your tickets now. Always a great event and evening. And I won't say they sell out, but I tell you, they do really, really well. So get in on that if you can. The other question I just want to raise to planning staff or ask planning staff about is the community has been asking about an update on 141 to 149 Main Street East, the Los Annie Coles property, because there's an upcoming Ontario Land Tribunal hearing on September the 3rd, and it's a case management conference. So I would just wonder if one of our planning staff that's in attendance tonight can provide us with an update, because the last we heard was May 17th, 2021, in the planning touch point, when it said staff and the town's legal representation will report to council with additional details at the appropriate time. So I think the community is asking, what is planning staff doing or legal planning to do at the September 3rd case conference, which is regarding the non-decision within the 120 days. Losani filed immediately after the open house and before the actual public meeting was held. And they're also, I believe, appealing the demolition of the 2 heritage homes that are now designated. So just if we can get an update, please, on what's going to happen September 3rd, that would be appreciated.
Councillor Ritchie.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted clarity, update for how? As we all know, that our legal will be present, will be supporting our town. And
we don't know that, Councillor Ritchie, because
how do we not know that? How has legal not been involved the entire time?
We don't have anything on the Losani Coles appeal. Have you heard something I haven't heard?
Well, so you know that it's going to an appeal, and our legal has been there the entire time with us in closed session, as you're well aware.
This is the first case management conference.
That's fine.
For the Losani property, the first one. This
is not in our legal's hands?
This isn't the DeSantis property.
So you're saying we have no legal there whatsoever?
I'm asking.
For an update.
Could you please stop talking?
Could you?
Yes, Councillor Ritchie.
You do not have the
floor. I directed my question to planning staff, not you.
Yes, and that's why I sit there and say,
can you please
again, you're directing staff without a motion.
Yes, Councillor Ritchie, stop your cross talking.
Excuse me, I have the floor, Mayor Jordan.
No, I asked. I had the floor.
Yes, you interrupted me,
Mayor Jordan.
You interrupted me.
You recognized me and gave me the floor to speak. I did not.
Mayor, may I ask for order and may I ask planning staff to respond to my question, please? Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan, I have the floor. How did she just go through? I sat there and said straight out that we have legal, and she interrupted and said, how do you know that? I had the floor at the time. And once again, here we are, we have one counselor directing
by the mayor.
All right, both of you, it's too late in the meeting to remove either of you. So, Councillor Ritchie.
Yeah, so that's where I sit there and say, so we have had our legal there present all the way through this process. Whether they file to an LPAT or not, I sit there and say, what are we going to have? I'm curious. Are we going to have a special meeting? Obviously that our legal is involved in every single step. And when I sit there and say, and here, we don't go to an LPAT, we don't go to any case hearings without legal being present. I don't know of one. If you could explain to me one, I'd like to hear that.
Point of order, please. I raised this question. It was not an item for discussion. It was an item directed.
I'm commenting.
So all I asked for was a simple answer. I just asked for a simple answer.
But again, Mayor Jordan, I want to make it very clear
that
one counselor cannot direct staff.
I'm not directing staff. I'm asking staff.
Asking for an update. We can all see that, Councillor Ritchie. So just both of you, enough.
I'd like to know, Mayor Jordan, when we're going to look for that update. If we have this hearing on the 7th.
Walter Basic is here right now, and why doesn't he get on screen and give us an update right now?
Are you directing him as well, as if he chooses to do so?
Walter, would you like to give us an update? Apparently.
Our
thank you.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, our legal counsel, or the town's legal counsel, will be in attendance. The town's legal counsel will provide counsel with an update at the appropriate time. I have no further information to provide you at this time.
Great, thank you very much. Seeing no further announcements, I have one of my own.
Just a further, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't finished. Since we had Walter there, I'd like to ask him how long they've been involved in this process.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Jordan. The legal counsel was involved in the process shortly after the submission of the appeal.
Thank you.
I don't have the exact date, but it was.
That's fine. Thank you very much. That clarifies a lot of things. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to announcements. Wednesday marks the 5th and final DIA Comedy in the Park night. And it's been very well received, and it was a great initiative brought together by the DIA downtown in Coronation Park. And we look forward to seeing everyone there Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Sorry, that was a mistake. Hit the wrong
All right.
button. Apologize.
All right. All right, our next meeting of council is scheduled for September 7th, 2021, following the committee of the whole. We will be back after a closed session. We're moving into closed session now. Under section 2392B of the Municipal Act, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, recognition of service, and closed session minutes. First, we have the electronic participation declaration. Good evening, members of council. Before we begin closed session, all members are reminded that any discussions in closed are to remain confidential as per a procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Ginsbee. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, confirm that no one else is present with you, confirm that no one else can hear this closed session, confirm that you're not using any electronic devices other than your tablet or computer for the purposes of this video conferencing only, confirm that you're not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all the statements. Councillor Bothwell.
I understand and confirmed all the statements.
Councillor Cadwell.
Excuse me, I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Ritchie.
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Sharp.
I understand and confirm to all except the electronic devices.
Councillor Bain. All right, Councillor Bain's gone. Myself, I understand and confirm to all the statements. Need a mover and seconder to go into closed. Moved by Councillor Cadwell. Seconder. Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that council meet in closed session regarding the following: under section 2392B of the Municipal Act, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, recognition of service. Harry?
Thank you, Mayor. And my video isn't working, so I
Oh,
apologize.
sorry. All in favor to go into closed? Carried. Thanks. Sorry.
This is a time-sensitive item, so I appreciate bringing it to council, because we heard
Recording in progress.
Welcome back to the public. Need a mover and seconder to approve the directions out of closed. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that staff proceed with the directions provided in closed session in regards to item regarding recognition of service. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for first reading of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-61 and that same be read a first time. All in favor? It's carried. Mover and seconder for second and third reading. Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved leave be given to introduce bylaw 21-61 read a first time, now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? It's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Recording stopped.